Chapter 1262. The space in the room was not big, and the facilities were very simple. There were wooden tables, wooden chairs, wooden cabinets, and so on. There were many pieces of furniture on the wooden shelves. There were even many yellowed ancient books on a single wooden shelf. Yi-Chen could not help but brush his hand across the items one by one as he thought about his parents' daily lifestyle. At that moment, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and lifted his head to look at the painting in the middle of the wall in the room. It was a painting that was drawn with a brush. The person in the painting was a young man with short hair. His facial features were bright, and his eyes were deep as if he could see through people's hearts. Although his face was old-fashioned, the corner of his mouth was slightly pursed as if he was smiling. It was a very subtle smile. "This is my portrait." Yi-Chen's body trembled slightly. The portrait was exactly the same as him. Even the eyes were exactly the same. If it was not someone who had been with him for a long time, it would be impossible for the portrait to be so lifelike. Did father and mother draw this? Yi-Chen's heart was slightly moved. He extended his hand in an attempt to take the painting down, but he realized that there were 3 more paintings under his portrait. The second painting was of a lady. The lady had a beautiful face and gentle eyes. There was a hint of nobility in her, but she gave off a sense of intimacy. "It's Yuhan." Yi-Chen's heart skipped a beat. He took the painting down again and stared blankly at the person in the painting. The second painting was of a little girl with 2 ponytails on her head and a floral dress. The little girl seemed to be making a face. Yi-Chen could not help but laugh at her mischievous look. "It's Meng Meng." Yi-Chen pursed his lips slightly and a faint smile appeared on his face. He then extended his hand and took it down, revealing the last painting. It was a little boy around 1 year old. He was wearing an ancient costume, and his skin was as fair as jade. His eyes were as handsome as a devil, and he looked like he was out of this world. Most importantly, the boy's facial features were 40 to 50% similar to Yi-Chen's. The only difference was his aura. "It's my brother." Yi-Chen stretched his arm out and stroked the little guy in the painting. He mumbled softly, "This brat looks more like Dad, especially the shape of his lips." He slowly and carefully put away the 4 paintings, then once again walked around the room. Eventually, he arrived at the bookshelf. Apart from the 4 books and 5 classics, a stack of dusty letters caught Yi-Chen's attention. He extended his arm and took it down gently. He blew away the dust on it and realized that there were letters. "It's Mother's handwriting." Yi-Chen's eyes lit up. He opened the first letter slowly and realized that it looked like a diary. "This is the first day that old Yi and I have arrived at the academy. The academy is huge, and there are many people. Their clothes are strange, and there is a language barrier. Old Yi and I have to spend half a day thinking about what to say. I don't like this place. I want to go home to see Xiaochen and Meng Meng. I don't know where Yuhan is. I don't know where she is. I don't. Yuhan. After 10 months of pregnancy, old Yi and I've had our second child. Unfortunately, he wasn't born in the hospital, but in this strange place, Yuhan, Xiaochen, Yuhan and... This brat is too mischievous. He's much more mischievous than his brother when he was young. When he was young, he was either fishing in the river or climbing trees to steal birds' nests. In the end, this brat uprooted the entire willow tree because he thought that the crows on the willow tree outside were too noisy. Yuhan should have given birth too, right? She seems to have a boy in her stomach. I wonder how happy Xiaochen would be if he found out. Tears rolled down the corner of Yi-Chen's eyes as he read. Eventually, they dripped onto the rice paper in his hand, making the words blurry. He was a cold person and never revealed his emotions. However, he could not suppress his sorrow at this moment. Through the words his mother left behind, he could imagine how much pressure his parents had endured after coming to the ancient, desolate realm. Loneliness, yearning, fear. At that moment, the entire courtyard he was in suddenly shook violently a few times. Then, waves of terrifying energy began to fluctuate in the world. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold, and he disappeared from where he was instantly. When he appeared in the courtyard, he saw that a powerful formation had been set up in the quiet courtyard. It was like a gigantic eggshell light screen that enveloped the entire courtyard. Outside the formation stood more than 10 old figures. Although they did not have the aura of a martial Tao cultivator, they faintly merged with heaven and earth. "What are you guys trying to do?" Yi Chen squinted. "Are you trying to trap me? Where's Ning Haoran? Get him to come out and see me." "You still want to see Mountain Master Ning when you're about to die?" The white-haired old man in the lead smirked coldly with a malicious gaze. "Yi, it's fine that you've stirred up trouble outside and killed many people. You've even disregarded the Academy's rules. Today we'll suppress you here." "You guys want to suppress me?" Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. "I only want to see my parents this time. I don't want to start a massacre, but why are you guys forcing me?" "So what if I force you?" The white-haired old man smirked in disdain and said coldly, "You've been trapped by us with the 3 talents 6 harmonies formation. This formation has once trapped and killed an emperor's throne. Don't even think about getting out in this lifetime. Where are my parents? Where's my brother?" Yi Chen's eyes gradually turned red. "I'll give you guys one last chance. Get them to come out and see me. Don't even think about seeing them for the rest of your life." For some reason, the white-haired old man suddenly panicked when he met Yi Chen's gaze. Then, he said to the dozen people behind him, "Stay here and watch him. I'll get the mountain and river cauldron and kill him." Just as he turned around, he suddenly heard a monstrous tremor coming from behind him. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. "I just want to reunite with my family. I've never planned to be your enemy. This is just a normal person's feelings. Why are you guys forcing me? Why?" A voice that sounded like a god's roar was heard. The white-haired old man turned around immediately and saw that Yi Chen's form had changed drastically at that moment. His body expanded, and his clothes turned into golden battle armor. His white hair started turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as red as blood. His eyes were like 2 rivers of blood, and they were suffused with monstrous killing intent and boundless viciousness. "Quick, stabilize the formation." This sudden scene caused the white-haired old man's expression to change drastically. He immediately cried out in alarm, "Don't let him break out of the formation!" Boom! The dozen or so people behind him erupted with righteous energy, and they worked together to activate the origin energy of heaven and earth to support the formation. "You guys want to trap me?" Yi Chen's clothes were fluttering. He let out a long roar and extended his hand. It turned into a giant hand that could hold up the sky. It collided with the formation's light barrier like a 5-fingered mountain. "Break. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City." Chapter 1263. "Hold on, you must hold on." The old man's expression changed drastically when he saw the mountain-like hand, and he shouted repeatedly. Rumble, as the big hand slammed heavily on the light curtain of the formation, the light curtain that seemed indestructible in their eyes shattered with a loud bang, as if it was crushing dry weeds and rotten wood. Blurred. In that instant, the dozen or so experts of the Academy suffered a backlash. All of them vomited a mouthful of blood, and their bodies were sent flying. The white-haired old man's face was filled with shock. His figure flashed as he tried to escape. However, at that moment, a godlike figure descended before him, a pair of blood-red eyes locked onto him. "Why you?" The old man looked at Yi Chen in fear. He was so shocked that his guts were about to explode. Yi Chen stretched his hand out slowly and pierced through his chest directly, shattering his body and soul. "I'm benevolent, but you guys force me to slaughter all living beings. Why are you forcing me? Why?" Yi Chen turned around slowly. His crimson eyes locked onto the dozen or so academy powerhouses who were severely injured. He's possessed, this brat has been possessed. He killed Elder Pang of the Tao Academy. His crime is unforgivable. Quickly go and invite the various mountain masters and deans. We must kill him. When the dozen or so people met his gaze, it was as if their souls had fallen into an endless hell. Someone ran away quickly, wanting to get help. Yi Chen stretched out his hand and crushed the person to death directly. Some people joined forces and charged at Yi Chen fearlessly. Yi Chen clenched his fist across the air and killed them along with a few people. Their souls were destroyed. In an instant, more than 10 martial saint elders of the academy were either dead or injured. Only one person was still alive when he saw Yi Chen walking over. That person knelt heavily on the ground in fear. You can't kill me. I'm an elder of the academy's Yin-Yang courtyard. Take me to my parents. Yi Chen picked it up in his hand. He then turned around and left with killing intent that filled the sky. He was like a devil walking in the world. That person's expression changed slightly, and then a determined look flashed across his face. He seemed to want to bite his tongue and commit suicide. Humph! Yi Chen scoffed and shattered his teeth directly. Then, he tore his arm off. As blood splattered everywhere, the man screamed, "Spare me! Your parents have long been moved to the back mountain of the academy. I'm just an elder. I don't have the authority to enter the back mountain." Yi Chen tore another arm off. "Bring me there." All right, stop torturing me." That person was in so much pain that his entire face had deformed. He was a scholar and cultivated in the literary path. His physical body wasn't as strong as a warrior's, so how could he endure such pain? "Go straight ahead, then turn left." Yi Chen looked at the direction he was pointing at. He picked him up with one hand and charged. At the same time, he frantically spread out his divine sense, trying to find any trace of his parents. "Dad, Mom, I'm here. Where are you?" As he walked, he asked the person in his hand, "How much further?" Soon. Both of that person's arms were broken, and they were bleeding non-stop. Even his words were leaking, and scarlet blood flowed from his mouth. As he walked with great fanfare, it immediately alarmed the academy. In an instant, countless figures rushed toward him. There were even peerless ferocious birds that sealed the void. All sorts of killing formations soared into the sky, as if they wanted to kill Yi Chen completely. In just a few breaths of time, Yi Chen followed the guidance of the person in his hand and arrived at a dead end. A towering mountain blocked his way. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, several figures with powerful auras chased after him. 2 of them actually emitted the dignity of an emperor's throne powerhouse. "Be *starred, where are you going? How dare you kill in our academy? We must kill this brat. Let go of Elder Su, cripple your cultivation base and kneel down to surrender. We might leave your corpse intact." Yi Chen lowered his head and looked at the person in his hand. A cold gleam flashed through his eyes as he was extremely furious. "You lied to me. You brought me here to stall for time. Quickly cripple your cultivation base and kowtow to surrender." The man laughed maniacally and said vaguely, "There's no way forward and there are pursuers behind. You won't be able to escape even if you fly into the sky or dive into the ground." The Yi couple was a special existence in the academy. How could an ordinary elder like him bring Yi Chen there? Otherwise, only death would await him. Therefore, he could only deceive Yi Chen and bring him to this dead end. At the same time, he bought time for the reinforcements of the academy's powerhouses. "You really deserve to die." Yi Chen roared and smashed him heavily into the mountain behind him. The person was smashed into a pile of meat paste on the spot. At the same time, at the academy gate, Xiao He looked at the patriarch of hell, Xiao Man, and the other 2 beside him and said worriedly, "Master has been gone for so long, but there's still no movement. Could something have happened?" "Don't worry. The Patriarch of Hell raised his brows and said nonchalantly, "With fellow Ye's methods, even if this lousy academy has any schemes, they won't be able to do anything to you." Right at this moment, a roar filled with monstrous rage resounded from the academy. "I'm benevolent, but you're forcing me to slaughter all living beings. Why are you forcing me? Why?" The voice shook heaven and earth, piercing through the past and present. "Ye has been suppressed." Elder One and the rest, who were guarding the mountain gate, were overjoyed when they heard that. "This is great. Let's see how that brat resists. Damn it, they really don't have good intentions." Hearing this familiar voice, a monstrous murderous aura erupted from the depths of Xiao Hei's eyes. Roar! With a furious roar, his body suddenly transformed into a black dragon's true form. Then, he swayed his enormous body and directly clawed at Elder One and the rest. "Go to hell!" The expressions of Elder One and the rest changed abruptly, and then they roared unwillingly, "No! Rumble!" Xiao Hei's claw slammed down and the ground cracked. Elder One and the rest were instantly annihilated by that terrifying might. Fellow Yi is sending us a signal. Instead of being shocked, the Patriarch of Hell was elated. He rubbed his palms together and said, "Today, we'll flatten this lousy academy that's full of benevolence and morality." After saying that, he took the lead and charged forward, roaring with all his might, "I'm the Patriarch of Hell. Die, you bastards of Jixia Academy!" Almost at that moment, at the Academy's back mountain, in a valley that looked like a paradise on earth, a middle-aged woman in her 30s or 40s sat cross-legged, seemingly breathing in the spiritual energy in the mountains. Her entire body was wrapped in a faint purple aura, as if rays of light were shining on her body, faintly revealing a transcendent aura. At that moment, the woman suddenly felt a throbbing pain in her heart. She opened her eyes abruptly. "Xiaoqin, it's Xiaoqin." An elegant scholar with a beard walked over beside her. "Xiaoqin? We haven't seen him for more than a year. Are you hallucinating?" At this point, a hint of loneliness flashed in his eyes. It had been more than a year, so how could he not miss that child? No. The middle-aged woman's body trembled violently. She stood up and looked out of the valley. "Old Yi, it's really Xiaoqin. I heard his voice. Believe me, he's here. Mother and son are connected." "It's really Xiaoqin?" The elegant scholar's body trembled, and a hint of disbelief and excitement flashed in his eyes. Could it be that he really came to find us? Chapter 1264. "Dad, Mom, Brother, where are you guys?" Yi Chen shouted again as he looked at the powerhouses of the academy who were surging over from all directions. His voice shook the sky, and it was moving. "How dare you use force in my academy? You've committed a heinous crime. Suppress, we must suppress it." In an instant, countless powerhouses of the academy surrounded him. Although they did not cultivate as martial artists, the 3 flowers above their heads shone with golden light. Tongue sword unleashing. The one palace in a powerhouse's body trembled as he chanted. With a boom, sword chi that filled the sky surged through the air along with the movement of his lips. The sword chi that filled the sky was like lightning. It was vast and mighty as it slashed at Yi Chen with terrifying might. "Get lost!" Yi Chen roared. His voice was like thunder. He shattered that person's Wendao sword chi with a single roar and turned him into a bloody mist. "Don't attack him alone. This brat is not an ordinary emperor's throne. He once killed 4 emperor's throne powerhouses." A powerhouse roared with a sinister gaze. "Let's work together to suppress him with Wen Qi and try our best to stall until the deans and family heads arrive. Using brush to suppress mountains and rivers. Poetry can suppress a nation." Rumble, following an earth-shattering rumble, many Wendao powerhouses of the academy unleashed their instincts. Their eyes were filled with crazy killing intent. Someone picked up a brush and drew the painting sword into the air, and turned into bolts of lightning, attempting to kill Yi Chen on the spot. Someone spat out golden words one after another. Every word was enough to fill rivers and seas. Someone stood with a zither in his arms. His 10 fingers danced, and as intense music filled the air, waves of terrifying sound-killing technique charged at Yi Chen. Such an earth-shattering scene shocked countless disciples of the academy. They stood in the distance and watched the scene in shock. There was a young girl in red in the crowd. However, she was biting her lips at that moment as she looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. The young girl was Mo Hongxiu. Junior sister Hongxiu, look. That's the master of the art academy. He's holding a Taowu painting, and he's actually summoning the projection of the ferocious beast Taowu. Mo Rong, who was beside her, was watching the battle in shock as he excitedly introduced it to Mo Hongxiu. Senior brother Yi, why are you fighting with the elders? Mo Hongxiu clasped her fingers tightly, unable to accept this scene. She had grown up in the academy, and many of the powerhouses in the academy were like amiable elders to her. Logically speaking, she should stand above the elders. However, she met Yi Chen when she went out earlier. Although they had not known each other for long, she had long regarded Yi Chen as a friend. On one side was her family and on the other side were her friends. It was very difficult for her. Boom! Next, a massive, illusory figure that was over 300 meters tall joined the battlefield. The illusory figure seemed to be a giant. It wore black armor and held a long sword in its hand. Only a pair of hollow eyes could be seen from its body. Even Mountain Lord Mo of the criminal court is here. Mo Rong and the rest exclaimed again. Elder Mo even brought a 6-ding divine puppet. Ye's in trouble now. Slash! The giant swung the iron sword in his hand at Yi Chen's neck. Break! A terrifying pressure swept out from Yi Chen's body, sweeping through everything and shattering the giant directly. Blurred. Some powerhouses spat blood and retreated. You trapped my family and attacked me without distinguishing right from wrong. If you don't hand over my parents today, I swear I won't let this go. Yi Chen was furious. He charged into the crowd almost instantly, and the space was crushed directly. He waved the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and attacked everyone in the crowd indiscriminately. His killing intent was almost tangible. Die. His punch directly smashed the Academy's Mountain Lord Hua Daoyuan to death. Elder Mo of the criminal court wanted to sneak an attack on him from behind, but his body was pierced by Yi Chen's hair that seemed to have a life of its own. With every step he took, a powerhouse of the Academy would die. It was as if he had entered an unstoppable realm. He went on a killing spree and no one could stop him. In the distance, the Academy disciples who were extremely excited earlier were instantly dumbfounded. They watched Yi Chen, who was slaughtering the Academy's powerhouses, in shock. This person is really too powerful. An Academy disciple's voice trembled. Could it be that there's no powerhouse in our Academy who can subdue him? Just as he finished speaking, a purple energy suddenly enveloped the air. Emperor Yi, you've gone too far. Boom. At that moment, a gigantic golden chessboard descended from the sky and trapped Yi Chen within it. The chessboard was as huge as a mountain. Subsequently, an azure-clothed scholar arrived on a cloud. That person looked at Yi Chen, who was suppressed in the chessboard, quietly and shook his head. Why bother? It's the Dean of the Chess Academy. The Academy disciples who were already in despair were instantly shocked. Their gazes at the azure-clothed scholar were filled with boundless respect. The Dean of the Chess Academy, Chu He, was one of the only 13 deans of Jixia Academy. He had studied chess for thousands of years, and he could form a formation with a wave of his hand. He could turn the void into a chessboard with a single thought. His strength was among the top of the 13 deans. That's Dean Chu's Sunluo chessboard. Someone looked at the huge chessboard that stood before everyone like a mountain and was extremely envious. It said that Dean Chu's Sunluo chessboard can suppress an emperor's throne. It seems like it lives up to its reputation. At that moment, several figures arrived one after another. There were men and women, some holding flutes, some carrying zither, and some carrying abacuses. All of them looked extremely dignified. Dean of the Zither Academy. Dean of the Arts Academy. Dean of the Famous Scholars Academy. Dean of the Legalism Academy. At that moment, all the disciples present felt that it was difficult to breathe. It was as if there was a thunderclap in their minds. It was because 9 of the deans of Jixiao Academy were present. The deans had always been elusive, but now that they had appeared together, it showed how big a commotion Yi Chen had caused in the academy. Boom! At the same time, the golden chessboard on the ground began to shake violently as if Yi Chen was trying to break out of the game. The dean of the Zither Academy looked indifferent. Dean Chu, can your Sunluo chessboard really trap this brat? Hearing that, the dean of the Chess Academy, Chu He, smiled faintly. My Sunluo chessboard was refined from meteorites from outer space. There are more than 36,000 formations engraved on it, and it is also enhanced by the Chancellor's seal. Therefore, it's not difficult to trap an emperor's throne. At this point, he formed a seal with both hands. Under everyone's gaze, he directly shrunk the mountain-like golden chessboard into his palm. Yi Chen stood in the chessboard and sized up the former coldly. Are you guys really going to do this? Why do you say that, Emperor Yi? Chu He looked at him expressionlessly and said, if you behave yourself, the academy won't kill you. When the storm blows over, we'll naturally deal with you. Everyone who likes Genius Nanny in the city. Genius Nanny in the city updates the fastest. Chapter 1265. At this point, he narrowed his eyes and said in a dignified manner, if you still want to struggle, I don't mind refining you with the true Samadhi fire. Many people were shocked by his words. True Samadhi fire. The Samadhi of the true Samadhi fire was superior fire, middle fire, and lower fire. Fire was divided into sovereign fire, official fire, and civil fire. Even in the academy, only the various deans could cultivate such a technique. Its power was extremely terrifying. Dean Chu, please show mercy. At this moment, a figure flew over from afar. It was Grand Tutor Ning. Ning Haoren, what are you doing here? The Dean of the Art Academy's gaze darkened as he berated. Didn't I ask you to repent at the cliff of reflection? Grand Tutor Ning did not say a word. He knelt heavily in front of Chu He and said bitterly, Dean Chu, fellow Yi is only here to see his parents. The reason why this happened today is all because of a misunderstanding between the two parties. Please, misunderstanding? Chu He pursed his lips slightly, seemingly displeased. This brat killed so many people from my academy. His actions can be called a devil, yet you're telling me that this is a misunderstanding? Grand Tutor Ning's lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to continue pleading. I have my own plans. You may leave. Chu He did not give him a chance to speak. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent the former flying 3,000 meters away. Grandpa Chu! At this moment, Mo Hongxiu walked out from afar and knelt down heavily. She gritted her teeth and said, let senior brother Yi go. Senior brother Yi, Hongxiu, if your grandfather heard what you said, he would definitely blame you. Chu He's expression turned cold. He forcefully restrained Mo Hongxiu and got someone to take her away. He then looked at Yi Chen who was on the chessboard. Emperor Yi, I heard that you have a golden divine brush. If you hand it over, I might let you go. So you've taken a fancy to my emperor brush? Yi Chen scoffed when he heard that. Your Jixia Academy trapped my family and coveted my treasure. How dare you call yourself a scholar? I think you're more like a hypocrite. Dean Chu, why are you wasting time with this brat? The Dean of the Sword Academy snorted expressionlessly. If we work together to refine this brat with the true Samadhi fire, he'll still tell us everything obediently. That's good too. Chu He stroked his beard and smiled. However, in the next moment, the smile on his face suddenly froze. He stared at his myriad chessboard, only to see a crack appear on the chessboard at a speed visible to the naked eye. The crack was getting bigger and bigger. In the end, the chessboard exploded and a figure shot out. Then, a bone-chilling voice rang out. Today, I want Jixia Academy's mountains and rivers to collapse and turn into ruins forever. A mighty pressure exploded from Yi Chen's body. At that moment, crazy killing intent flickered in his eyes, as if an ancient demon lord had descended into the world. Not good, he's escaped. Everyone, don't hold back. Quickly suppress him. Almost at that instant, the few deans, including Chu He, reacted instantly, and their bodies moved like thunder. Surrender now. The dean of the Kendo Academy turned Wen Yun into a long river of sword qi that filled the sky. It surged toward Yi Chen and attacked him with unparalleled power. Yi Chen's long hair fluttered in the wind. There was no fear on his face. He covered the sky with his hand and pressed down. He directly resisted the attack with his body. The former screamed on the spot and spat a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying as if he had fallen, creating a bloody mist. He killed the dean of the Kendo Academy with a single palm strike? The pupils of the other powerhouses who witnessed this scene constricted. One had to know that the combat prowess of the various deans of the academy was not weaker than an emperor's throne. Don't panic. He's alone and there are 7 or 8 of us. We can kill him here. Chu He roared. In the outside world, an ordinary emperor's throne stage cultivator could become a ruler like Di Xuanxiang. However, the 15 deans of Jixia Academy all had emperor's throne stage combat prowess. This was the absolute status of Jixia Academy in the ancient desolate realm. Kill. 5 of the 8 deans charged at Yi Chen immediately. The other 3 refined their treasures crazily in an attempt to suppress Yi Chen again. However, under Yi Chen's God transformation stage divine consciousness, not only could the one Tao divinity that the 5 of them performed not stop him, but Yi Chen got close to him instead. He charged at Chu He, the dean of the chess academy, and waved his fist. He pierced through the void and punched at his chest without giving him a chance to retreat. It was this person who had used the limitless chessboard to suppress Yi Chen earlier. He even wanted to use the true Samadhi fire to refine him so that he would hand over his fortuitous encounter, such as the Emperor brush. The moment Yi Chen got close to him, Chu He's hair stood on end. It was as if death had arrived. He immediately retreated frantically. Although he was not a martial artist, his speed was so fast that it was unfathomable. He had broken through the sound barrier. However, all of this was futile in Yi Chen's eyes. Almost at the moment he retreated, Yi Chen's fist broke through the void and landed on him. Chu He screamed as his body was torn into pieces on the spot. Another dean was dead. At this moment, the hearts of the Jixia Academy disciples, who were watching from afar, were already covered in fear. They no longer took pleasure in Yi Chen's misfortune. That was the dean of the academy. Even the other 7 deans were shocked. There was a hint of retreat in their eyes. However, when they thought of the strict rules of the academy, they forcefully extinguished the thought. I'll overturn your Jixia Academy today. Yi Chen roared again. His long hair danced wildly as his gaze charged at the 7 of them like 2 heavenly swords. He had a supreme demeanor. With every step he took, the 7 deans could not help but take a step back, as if they were afraid of battle. The academy disciples stared blankly at the figure who seemed to be possessed by a demon. They were all stunned. Boom! Yi Chen attacked again. His eyes were sharp as he lifted his hand and threw the 5-element heavy peak. His every move contained great terror. Rumble, the great peak soared through the sky, emitting a terrifying suction force that suppressed the 7 deans. 6 of their expressions changed drastically as they retreated frantically. However, there was one person who could not dodge in time. That person screamed and was killed on the spot. The world fell into dead silence once again. What kind of devil was this reincarnation? The dean of the Zither Academy looked at Yi Chen in fear. He said sternly, Emperor Yi, the sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you'll be saved. If you continue to make mistakes, you'll be standing against our academy. That's right. The terror of our academy is beyond your imagination. The Legalism Academy's dean's eyes flickered. If I were you, I'd cripple my own cultivation right now and kneel down to admit my guilt. That way, I might be able to escape death. You shameless old fools! Monstrous murderous aura swept through the sky in Yi Chen's blood-red eyes. Today, I'll destroy the gods and Buddha. I'll make Jixia Academy bleed for 3,000 miles. If you like Evil Nanny Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Nanny Dad in the city is updated the fastest. Chapter 1266. Die, all of you! At that moment, Yi Chen's body was surging with killing intent. He was like a peerless demon god that had awakened. He looked down at the world as his killing intent surged towards the remaining 6 people. The void was torn apart. He stretched out his hand, and the dean of the legalism school was grabbed by his hand, unable to resist at all. The dean of the legalism school struggled with all his might, trying to escape, but he realized that it was futile. Emperor Yi, please forgive me. At the moment of life and death, he finally panicked. He could no longer maintain his previous calmness and roared with all his might, as if he wanted to beg for mercy. Die. However, Yi Chen did not give him a chance to speak at all. He was as calm as an ancient well. With a swipe of his hand, thick blood mist erupted from the void. The dean of the legalism school was dead. Boom! At that moment the entire world was in an uproar. Countless disciples who were watching from the sidelines watched Yi Chen go on a killing spree while trembling. The deans that they revered were killed by Yi Chen one after another. Was the academy that they had believed in all their lives going to be destroyed by Yi Chen today? Quick, get the other 6 deans. Finally, the dean of the Confucian school roared maniacally, "This brat is too terrifying. We can't suppress him. Only the other 6 deans can suppress him." As soon as he said that, a person from the academy swayed, as if he wanted to follow the order to get reinforcements. However, at this moment, a miserable figure suddenly rushed over from afar. That person spat blood. Dean Xing, bad news. Dean Nong and the rest are in danger. The dean of the Confucian school trembled. What did you say? The person fell heavily to the ground, his face extremely pale. 3 people charged into our academy from outside the mountain gate. The leader is called the Patriarch of Hell. He's extremely ferocious. Dean Nong and the other 5 can't stop him. The dean of the Yin-Yang school is dead. The dean of the Dao school is dead. The dean of the Zong school is dead. The dean of the miscellaneous school is dead. Following that, the person quickly revealed the news. In an instant, the world was terrifyingly silent. Countless disciples of the academy were dumbstruck. Yi Chen's helpers had lost so many deans? What kind of existence did Jixia Academy provoke? Blurg. Dean Xing of the Confucian school spat out a mouthful of blood, as if he had aged dozens of years in an instant. All of you, go to hell. Yi Chen tossed out the 5 elemental heavy prison peak once more and killed another dean. His ferocious might overflowed and no one could stop him. What now? The remaining 4 deans were horrified. Yi Chen held the 5-element heavy prison peak in his hand and approached the 4 of them step by step. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. Finally, someone couldn't endure his killing intent and rushed into the distance in an attempt to escape. However, he was horrified to find that he had crashed into an incomparably hard spatial barrier. The next moment, his body bounced back heavily. No! Along with a furious roar of unwillingness, a bloody mist appeared in the air again. It's over. Jixia Academy is finished. A powerhouse thumped his chest and stamped his feet, his eyes bloodshot. Yi, you'll be punished by the heavens for killing our academy's powerhouses. You still don't know how to repent. Yi Chen scoffed coldly. Just when he was about to charge forward, a breeze suddenly blew in the air. A gentle voice gradually sounded. "Sigh, this is the land of the saints' teachings. How can you kill like this? What a scandal!" Hearing this sudden voice, the spirits of the 4 deans, who were already in despair, jolted. Then, they revealed expressions of ecstasy. "Lord Chancellor, it's Lord Chancellor! Lord Chancellor has appeared. That's great. Now that he's here, we're saved. Our academy is saved." In an instant, the remaining 4 deans knelt heavily on the ground in excitement. Their faces were filled with respect. The many disciples in the distance were stunned at first, then they could not help but burst into a thunderous uproar. The dean of the academy was here? It could be said that in the entire Jixia Academy, the Lord Chancellor had always been a legend. No one had ever seen him before, not even the 15 deans. Under everyone's gazes, a young man slowly walked over from the void. The young man was dressed in green, and he was about 20 years old. He was very young. With this person's appearance, the pungent smell of blood in the air seemed to disappear at that moment. A sense of peace emerged from the depths of everyone's panicked hearts. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and watched the person walk over coldly. The young man stopped and looked at Yi Chen quietly. He seemed to be emotionless. "Why did you commit such a killing sin?" Yi Chen looked at him and shouted like thunder. "You trapped my family, stopped me from meeting my parents, and even set a trap to kill me. You deserve to die." What a powerful aura! The green-clothed man's expression was calm, and his voice was still gentle. "Young man, let go of the hatred in your heart and subdue the demonic thoughts in your heart. Otherwise, you'll fall into the demonic path. Obsession is suffering. If I want to suffer to the end, I'm willing to become a demon with a single thought." Yi Chen carried his daughter as a cold gleam emerged in his eyes. "You don't have to deceive me. If you stop me, I'll kill you too. Become a demon with a single thought." The green-clothed man sighed softly as if he thought of something. "Back then, Yi Dongli was just like you. He did not hesitate to become enemies with everyone in the world, but in the end, he died and implicated many innocent people. Who is Yi Dongli?" Yi Chen frowned. "He's your Yi family's ancestor." The green-clothed man's voice was magnetic. "You don't have to doubt it. Your father has Yi Dongli's bloodline. It's enough to prove that you're Yi Dongli's descendants. That's also the reason why my academy took in your parent." "Since when did my Yi family have a Yi Dongli?" Yi Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not believe what he said. Subsequently, he said coldly, "Since you took in my parents, please hand them over now." "Why do you insist on seeing your parents?" The green-clothed man's voice was leisurely. "What if the price for you to see your parents is the death of your 1-year-old brother? What happened to my brother?" The red gleam in Yi Chen's eyes exploded. He glared at the former with murderous intent in his eyes. "Explain yourself. Your brother is sick." The green-clothed man was still calm, as if he was narrating an extremely ordinary matter. "When your mother was pregnant with him, she rode a ghost ship through the dark barrier and was cursed by the terrifying creatures in the dark quicksand." Boom! At that moment, Yi Chen's mind rumbled like a bolt out of the blue. "What did you say?" "After your brother was born, I checked his body." The green-clothed man's expression was calm as he said unhurriedly, "He doesn't have a heart. I think he was devoured by the terrifying creatures in the dark quicksand. The reason he's still alive is because I've traveled throughout the ancient desolate realm and found the wood spirit heart to extend his life. However, the wood spirit heart can only extend his life for 3 years. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Yi Chen's face turned pale. He could not help but take a few steps back. His eyes were filled with heartache. "If you want to save your brother, you need someone to change his heart," the green-clothed man continued. "Your mother's heart can be matched with him, but your brother is unwilling. Moreover, your mother will die without a heart." He could not help but look at Yi Chen as he said that. His voice was filled with magic. "You're different. You're a great cultivator. You can still live without a heart." Chapter 1267. Are you willing to give your heart to your brother? The green-robed man's tone was extremely gentle, but it had a bewitching charm. It echoed in one's mind, making one subconsciously trust him. You want me to give my heart to my brother? Yi Chen's eyes focused when he heard that. He then looked at the former as if he was moved. Can my heart really save my brother? Of course. The green-robed man smiled lightly. His gaze at Yi Chen became gentler. Your brother is the closest to your bloodline. Moreover, you're a grand cultivator. Not only can your heart extend your brother's life, but it can also strengthen his aptitude. At this point, his voice was filled with magnetism. When the time comes, you and your brother will be able to sweep through the ancient desolate realm and suppress the ages. No one will be able to stop you. You're not lying to me, are you? Yi Chen's lips moved slightly. The desire in his eyes was getting more obvious. I'm not lying to you because lying to you won't do me any good. Taking 10,000 steps back, that's your brother. Are you willing to see him die because of your coldness? Didn't you put in so much effort and caused such a commotion to see your parents and brother? If something happens to them, can you guarantee that you won't live in guilt for the rest of your life? The green-robed man shook his head and smiled. He looked at Yi Chen with a burning gaze. Tell me your choice now. If you're willing to save your brother, I'll naturally let you see your parents after this is done. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere gradually quietened down. Only Yi Chen's struggling face and choosing gaze were left. All right. A few seconds later, a seemingly decisive voice came from Yi Chen's mouth. He looked at the former fixedly. How can I give my heart to you? As soon as he said that, many people from the academy standing in the distance could not hide the joy in their eyes. Child, come here. Kuyunzi's expression was still as gentle as before. He waved his sleeve at Yi Chen with a smile. His words and actions were filled with great charm. All right, I'm coming. Yi Chen's expression was wooden, as if his soul had been taken away. He walked towards the former step by step. Child, the process of extracting the heart is next. Kuyunzi's expression was extremely serious. You have to listen to me because this concerns your brothers and your own lives. Nothing must go wrong. All right, I'll listen to you. Yi Chen nodded blankly. Hearing this, Kuyunzi's eyes flashed. Good child, now open your mind and let me leave a mark in the depths of your soul. Only then will you be able to keep your life. Yi Chen's mudball palace shook slightly as he completely relaxed. If other cultivators were to see this, they would definitely break out in cold sweat. Because the Naiwan Palace was the residence of a cultivator's soul core, and once it was easily invaded by an external force, the consequences would be unimaginable. Good boy, the space between Kuyunzi's brows twitched slightly. Subsequently, a wisp of his soul turned into a dark glow and was about to pierce into Yi Chen's mudball palace. Fellow Taoist Yi, don't? At that moment, a thunderous roar came from afar. In an instant, a ghostly light turned into a bolt of lightning and flew over. As the ghostly light dissipated, a black-robed young man was revealed. It was none other than Patriarch Yellow Spring. At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell's expression was extremely grim as he looked at Yi Chen, who seemed to be controlled. He could not help but shout, Fellow Yi, what are you waiting for? Wake up! Daddy, wake up! The little guy was anxious. However, Yi Chen did not move at all. You old dog, what method did you use to bewitch Fellow Yi to such a state? The Patriarch of Hell's expression changed abruptly. He stepped into the air toward Kuyunzi with killing intent. Today, I'll send you to hell. Stop him. Kuyunzi's voice was like thunder. Kill. Suddenly, countless powerful auras surged in the world. Countless powerhouses of the Math Palace charged at the Patriarch of Hell fearlessly, including the remaining 4 deans of the Math Palace. Those who stand in my way will die. The Patriarch of Hell was furious. Murderous intent surged in his eyes as he charged into the crowd without holding back. He tried to charge at Yi Chen. Kuyunzi did not hesitate anymore. He split a third of his soul and pierced it into Yi Chen's mudball palace in an extremely domineering manner. His originally gentle face was no longer there. Instead, it was replaced by ferocity and ecstasy. As long as he controlled Yi Chen's mind, all the fortuitous encounters in Yi Chen's mind would belong to him, including his memories, abilities, and cultivation methods. However, at the next moment, as soon as 1/3 of his soul entered Yi Chen's mudball palace, Yi Chen's mudball palace was immediately sealed. Oh no! Kuyunzi's soul was shocked. He immediately fled in all directions, trying to rush out. At that moment, a golden shadow that looked like an ancient god soared into the sky and directly suppressed him in the chaotic sea of consciousness. Blech! Almost at that moment, Kuyunzi spat a mouthful of blood. He then looked at Yi Chen in pain. Is it painful? Yi Chen opened his eyes slowly. His originally numb expression was no longer there. Instead, it was replaced by a cold and sinister expression. It's no wonder. I destroyed 1/3 of your soul. If it were anyone else, they would have died long ago. Why you? Kuyunzi was still in shock. Yi Chen looked at him quietly. A mocking smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. Are you curious why I was able to control you at the critical moment even though I wasn't bewitched by you? You tricked me. Kuyunzi's gaze was cold. So what if I tricked you? Yi Chen shook his head lightly as if he was mocking. You're too stupid. Do you really think I'll believe your one-sided words? Even if my brother really doesn't have a heart, I can still extend his life. Why would I need to use my own heart? At this point, he could not help but grin, revealing his white teeth. Old man, I'm afraid you still don't know that even in the medical technology of the mortal world, there's not only heart transplant surgery, but also head transplant surgery, ha ha ha. At this moment, an earth-shattering laughter rang out. Fellow Yi, I knew you would be held hostage by this old dog. Then I'll have to cooperate with you, Yi Chen said while smiling. I'll kill all these hypocrites today. Netherworld destruction finger. The Patriarch of Hell's aura skyrocketed. As terrifying energy surged, a dark light transformed into a giant finger that could hold up the sky, forcefully killing a Dean. Awesome again. The Patriarch was in high spirits, like an evil young man. At this moment, the 9 Eagle Phoenix and Xiao He joined forces and charged over. They seemed to want to join the battle and attack Kuyunzi. Yi Chen stopped the two of them and handed the little girl in his arms to the 9 Eagle Phoenix. He then looked at Kuyunzi with flickering eyes. They say that you're the law enforcer of heaven and earth. I'd like to experience it today. Chapter 1268. Kuyunzi stared at Yi Chen. I'll fulfill your wish. 5 cold words filled with endless killing intent came from the former's mouth. An invisible domain formed between the two of them, stirring up a monstrous storm. Boom! At that moment, the boulders that weighed hundreds of thousands of kilograms between the two of them, as well as some small stone mountains, exploded with a loud bang. The aura between the two of them distorted the void, forming a shocking destructive force that actually caused an incomparably terrifying crack to appear in the void. Especially the purple light that surged out from Kuyunzi's body, it almost caused the world to lose its color. Crackle, a shocking bolt of lightning streaked past the two of them. Do you dare to fight me in the sky? Kuyunzi roared, and then he directly stepped into the huge spatial rift, traversing thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye. Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Chen took a step forward like a meteor. He instantly charged into the spatial rift and followed closely. Rumble, at that moment, endless thunderstorms sounded in the sky above the entire ancient, desolate realm. The heavenly might was brilliant, as if the end of the world was about to arrive. This was a technique that belonged to Kuyunzi. At that moment, everyone in the ancient desolate realm, be it mortals or cultivators, seemed to have sensed something and raised their heads to look at the sky. At the end of their line of sight, a 5-colored ray of light shot into the sky and headed straight for the sky. The light was dazzling, causing the sun to lose its color. Behind that ray of light there was a ray of golden light that was like the rising sun that followed closely behind, not falling behind at all. Immortals are fighting? At that moment all the mortals who saw this scene were shocked, and such a thought flashed through their minds. In the great Xia dynasty, a golden-robed figure stood at the peak of the imperial city. He looked into the sky and muttered, "Ascend to the sky and fight. Emperor Yi, can you break this prison?" Behind him, countless experts of the great Xia dynasty stood respectfully. Most of their eyes were filled with confusion, and they did not know what this phenomenon meant. Only a few people's expressions changed drastically. They seemed to have thought of something, and their eyes were filled with shock and respect. North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall. Hall Master Biming was cultivating in a secret chamber in Kunlun when he suddenly sensed something. His silhouette flickered, and in the next instant, he appeared 10,000 meters up in the sky, staring at the astonishing phenomenon. Several seconds later, his throat rolled. "Emperor Lord Yi, I respect you as a man. I wish you a triumphant return." In the far west of the ancient barren world, amidst the mountains stood a pure and holy palace. A barefooted old man was drinking to the sky. Whether or not this 10,000-year-old legend can be defeated will depend on you. He raised the wine pot in his hand as if he was offering a toast to someone. "The old people have been silent and depressed for too long. Perhaps you are our hope, the great Qin dynasty." Qin Jian looked at the sky. "It's this person. He's the one who made the emperor go missing. Mad Southern Yi, can you avenge my emperor?" At that moment, all corners of the ancient barren world were filled with silent conversations. Someone challenged Kuyunzi again. Another crazy one. After 10,000 years, apart from the Eastly Sovereign Lord who succeeded, which of the other imitators didn't die? Even an existence like the Eastly Sovereign Lord was killed by the heavens, right? Challenging Kuyunzi is equivalent to challenging the Immortal Palace. Kuyunzi is just a dog raised by the Immortal Palace. Moreover, he's a watchdog, full of benevolence and morality. Even if he's a dog, we're no match for him. These words seem to be filled with regret, admiration, and indifference. Yi Chen and Kuyunzi stood opposite each other in the sky. Endless terrifying gales swept past the two of them. Even a 9-revolution martial saint would be afraid of them, but they could only blow Yi Chen and Kuyunzi's clothes. "You look like Yi Dongli." Kuyunzi looked at Yi Chen quietly as if he was looking at a dead person. "You're too similar. Unfortunately, you're not him after all, and you're not my match. You talk too much nonsense." Yi Chen scoffed coldly. He gathered all the true origin energy in his body to the limit. Like lightning, he threw a punch at the former first. The moment the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was unleashed, it was as if the world was collapsing. His body was like an eagle soaring into the sky, and like a bolt of lightning, he appeared in front of Kuyunzi in the blink of an eye. Boom! His right fist shattered the void and blasted towards Kuyunzi's chest, as if he wanted to kill him with a single punch. Throughout the entire process, Kuyunzi's expression remained calm. His body did not even move, like a pine tree that had taken root in the dark. Whoosh! As his sleeves fluttered, a violent gust of wind blew in the air. Then, he spread his arms and pinched his fingers into a seal, lightly pressing it against the incoming fist. Bang! An earth-shattering sound reverberated from the intense collision of their attacks. It was like the hardest metal in the world colliding, almost shattering one's eardrums. The first head-on clash between the two of them was actually neck and neck. Yi Chen paused. A ferocious gleam flashed through his eyes when he looked at Kuyunzi again. "You're a cultivator?" He thought that in the ancient desolate realm, he was either an ancient martial artist or a spell master. However, the Chancellor of Jixiao Academy could actually use a spell that only cultivators could. If he was not a cultivator, what was he? Didn't that mean that other than Kuyunzi, There were other cultivators in the ancient desolate realm, or even inheritances of cultivators. Aren't you the same? Kuyunzi looked at him calmly and said, "From the moment you appeared in the northern region, I knew of your existence. I've been paying attention to you until now, and I've already verified my guess." "So what if you're a cultivator too?" Yi Chen squinted and said while grinning coldly, "I've killed many cultivators, and you're no exception." At the next moment, his left hand was like a rainbow as it swept forward. His left hand was like a bolt of lightning that cut through the night sky, causing the sky to roar and the void to tremble. "Go!" Kuyunzi stood in the air and waved his sleeve. Boom! His sleeve was like a giant blower, stirring up an extremely violent wind that surged towards Yi Chen. It was like a dam that had burst, and it was unstoppable. Buzz! At that moment, the void trembled, and then a huge crack that was 300 meters long appeared. It was like a shocking ravine that had been slashed by a sword, and it contained a terrifying storm. A sleeve slashed through the air. If an outsider were to witness such a scene, they would surely be shocked speechless, and would regard Kuyunzi as a true god. Break! Yi Chen's punch swept across the sky like a supreme emperor descending upon this world. His aura devoured mountains and rivers, and his domineering aura shook the world. He looked down on everything. His white hair danced wildly, and each strand of his hair was enough to cut through the void. This was an incomparable aura. In an instant, his entire body was like a comet hitting Earth. His body flew 3,000 meters horizontally, and his fist pierced through the void, causing a vacuum to appear in the void. Rumble! With a loud bang, Kuyunzi's spell was broken. Under the terrifying might, he could not help but retreat 30 meters. Yi Chen stepped into the air with his hands behind his back. His eyes were like lightning. "At this point, if you continue to hide your abilities, you'll definitely die in my hands in less than half a minute." Supreme Heaven Sword. Kuyunzi opened his mouth, and a small green sword shot out from his mouth like a dragon. Then, it expanded in the wind, and the sword gleam was dazzling. Buzz! The green flying sword slashed at Yi Chen mercilessly. It set off a sword gleam that was 30 meters tall. It was like a white rainbow piercing through the moon as it tore through the sky and charged at Yi Chen. It was Kuyunzi's trump card. It was also a primordial spirit treasure of a beginner-stage god transformation cultivator. He had never shown it to anyone for thousands of years. To him, how could the cultivation inheritance that Yi Chen had learned compare to his? He had never refined his own primordial spirit treasure. Therefore, he wanted to take him by surprise and kill him with a single strike. Clang, however, to his shock, after his supreme heaven sword slashed Yi Chen, it did not cause any damage to Yi Chen's body apart from a burst of sparks. Body refining technique? Kuyunzi's pupils constricted violently. There was shock in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen again. "You cultivate both immortal and martial arts?" "It's too late for you to know." Yi Chen took a step forward and pointed his finger like a sword. With a swoosh, the sword gleam surged and swept 1,000 meters away as it slashed at Kuyunzi. P.S. I'm a guest at a relative's house, so it's inconvenient for me to write. I can only update 2 chapters today. I'll write 5 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 1269. Beneath the Darkness, Jixia Academy. This was known as the number 1 Holy Land in the ancient desolate realm. At this moment, the ground was filled with ruins and blood flowed like a river. It could be said that not a single piece of stone was intact, and there was only endless fear. Countless powerhouses of the academy were killed, and only the disciples survived. However, at this moment, every survivor's face was filled with fear. "I wonder how fellow Yi is?" The Patriarch of Hell was covered in blood energy. His face was slightly pale as he looked at the void. There was a shocking explosion there. Beside him stood Xiao He and the 9 Eagle Phoenix. The latter was holding the little girl Meng Meng in her arms. The 3 of them were watching the battle in the darkness nervously. The nine-eagle phoenix looked at the patriarch of hell fearfully and hesitated to speak. "Do you think Master will?" He had vaguely understood many taboos that few people knew about the Academy's leader, Kuyunzi. Back then, the Eastli Imperial Lord had single-handedly swept through the ancient, desolate realm. He had also died, and his death was vaguely related to Kuyunzi. This was also the reason why he had always been afraid of Jisha Academy, and was even unwilling to provoke them. "Shut up!" Xiao He glared at him. The nine-eagle phoenix smiled bitterly and did not dare to speak anymore. It only felt that its life was too sad. Not only did it become someone else's mount, but even the little dragon did not take it seriously. "I believe in fellow Yi." The Patriarch of Hell took a deep breath in, and then his eyes flickered as he said, "What we can do now is to find fellow Ye's parents." With that, he spread out his divine consciousness, and with a flash, he teleported towards the back mountain of Jisha Academy. The tremors in the darkness became more and more intense, as if the sky could collapse at any time. Not only were the Patriarch of Hell and the other two paying attention, but everyone in the entire ancient desolate realm was paying attention to the earth-shattering battle in the darkness. The void above the darkness trembled. Bleck, as a fist shadow that was like a golden hammer landed on Kuyunzi's chest. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated rapidly. At that moment, Kuyunzi was in an extremely sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and he no longer looked like the modest gentleman from before. Meanwhile, Yi Chen stood in the air before him. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he looked peerless. He stood alone in the air, as if he had cut off heaven and earth. The killing intent on his body was getting stronger. "Fellow Yi, do you really want to fight me to the death?" Kuyunzi glared at the former and said in an extremely cold voice, "If you stop now, I can hand over your parents to you and promise that I won't make an enemy out of you again." If the other cultivators in the ancient barren world were to hear this, they would be shocked speechless. After all, the head of the academic palace, Kuyunzi, had long been recognized as the #1 cultivator in the ancient barren world after the Dongli Emperor Lord. He alone had suppressed an entire era. But now, he actually said such words that sounded like he was surrendering. "Stop here?" Yi Chen's expression was expressionless. His gaze was extremely sharp. "If you hand over my wife, I might consider sparing your life." "Your wife?" Kuyunzi was stunned at first, then he seemed to have thought of something. "You're talking about the woman surnamed Sue on the ghost ship, right?" At this point, he laughed out loud and said, "Not to mention that she's not in my hands. Even if she's in my hands, I won't hand her over to you." 1. Yi Chen's eyes focused. He suddenly unleashed a monstrous, killing intent and squeezed the void. "Yu Han is in the hands of the force behind you? So what if she is?" Kuyunzi said as if he had something to rely on. "Fellow Yi, I believe you know some of the secrets of the ancient barren world. The people of the world only know that the great Yin Imperial Dynasty and my Jisha Academy are the giants of the ancient barren world. They are like gods, but they don't know that the existences above us are the true gods and immortals." His eyes revealed incomparable reverence. "I call it the Immortal Palace. They cultivate the path of immortals, the art of longevity." "Immortal Palace?" Yi Chen narrowed his eyes. "That's right." Kuyunzi smiled proudly and nodded. "I was a good friend of Yi Dongli in my early years. Due to a chance encounter, I came into contact with an important figure from the Immortal Palace and was valued by him. He wanted to take us in as his disciples. At that time, I immediately became a disciple of that important figure and obtained the inheritance of divinity and Tao methods." At this point, he changed the topic and sneered. However, Yi Dongli refused without knowing what's good for him. "Do you think everyone is willing to be a lackey and a lackey like you?" A mocking smirk appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. "So what?" Kuyunzi was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "As the saying goes, it's better to be a dog in peace than a person in chaos. We cultivate for longevity. If we can't live forever, so what if we're glorious? In the end, we'll turn into dust. How many people will remember you in the blink of an eye? Later on, Yi Dongli chose to become enemies with the immortal palace for a group of ants. In the end, he suffered the fate he deserved. His laughter echoed in the starry sky. The facts prove that my choice was not wrong. Yi Chen said, however, you didn't ascend to immortality and live forever as you imagined. Longevity? Kuyunzi snorted coldly. How can there be eternal longevity in this world? As long as I can live one more day, I'll be stronger than anyone else. As soon as he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Yi Chen with a cold smile. Your wife's appearance gave me an opportunity to take another step forward. After I handed her to the important figure of the immortal palace, I actually received a shocking reward. You deserve to die 1,000 times. A fierce gleam surged in Yi Chen's eyes. He was about to attack again. Wait. However, Kuyunzi stopped him and said, Fellow Yi, you're also a cultivator. You're different from ants like Yi Dongli. Naturally, you know that we're going against the heavens. If you're willing, I can introduce you to that important figure from the immortal palace. Perhaps you can take another step forward on the path of cultivation. His words were extremely bewitching. When the time comes, won't all the women in the ancient desolate realm be yours? Why do you have to become enemies with the immortal palace for a woman? Buzz, at that moment, the temperature between heaven and earth dropped to the extreme, as if an ancient glacier was about to freeze the world. You're wrong. Yi Chen's voice was so cold that there was no warmth at all. The murderous intent in his eyes swept out. To me, Yuhan is more important than anything in the world. If you touch my woman, I'll kill you. The woman from the immortal palace behind you has designs on me, so I'll destroy the immortal palace behind you with my sword. Old man, you'll definitely die today. Yi Chen roared, shaking heaven and earth. The roar dispersed the wind like seawater pouring into the 9 heavens, shaking the ancient, desolate realm. Then, it turned into a soaring, killing intent. Die! His white hair danced wildly, and his gaze was as sharp as a knife. Killing intent swept in all directions as he directly attacked Kuyunzi. Be ****, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Kuyunzi was also enraged, and his expression became extremely sinister. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Like evil nanny dad in the city, please collect. Evil nanny dad in the city, Qing Do updates the fastest. Chapter 1270. As his voice fell, a hint of determination flashed through his eyes. Then, he waved his sleeve, and the space beside him suddenly distorted violently. Boom! In the huge spatial rift, a dazzling pillar of light pierced through his hand and headed straight for the ground. At the same time, Jixia Academy suddenly shook violently. In an instant, the world was turned upside down, and the mountains were shaking. The Patriarch of Hell, who was about to reach the back mountain of the Academy, stopped in his tracks. Then, he looked at Jixia Academy, which was like an earth dragon turning over, in shock. A figure that seemed like a god could be faintly seen shooting out explosively from the depths of the ground, and then it rose into the sky and entered the sky. That's... The Patriarch of Hell's expression changed drastically. That was because the figure that appeared from underground gave him a sense of incomparable danger. This was the first time he had felt such a feeling since he stepped into the early stage soul formation stage. Following the appearance of that figure, countless terrifying auras and gasps erupted in the silent and mysterious secret realms of the entire ancient desolate realm. That figure was simply too dazzling, too familiar. The Great Xia Empire, the Emperor of the Great Xia Empire, Emperor Hua, took a step forward and went straight into the clouds. He looked at the godlike figure in shock. That's the Eastly Imperial Lord. His entire body suddenly froze, and extreme shock surged in his eyes. How is this possible? How is this possible? North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall. Zi Kunlun, the master of the North Sea Hall, stared at the figure. It's the Eastly Imperial Lord, it's the Eastly Imperial Lord. His body trembled uncontrollably, but didn't the Eastly Sovereign Lord die 10,000 years ago due to the punishment of the heavens? In the Radiant Palace in the far west, the Radiant Patriarch knelt heavily, his old face filled with excitement. Eastly Imperial Lord, why you're not dead? In an instant the entire ancient desolate realm was shaken. Countless figures with powerful auras soared into the clouds, trying to track down that figure. In the darkness, Yi Chen stared solemnly at the spatial rift that was shaking violently. There was a terrifying aura approaching from afar. Rumble, following that, a blurry figure slowly rushed out from the crack. It was a man in clothes that were whiter than snow. His appearance was handsome like a demon, and it was sufficient to make any woman in the world feel jealous. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and he was a peerless beauty. His black hair seemed to roll up the black curtain of the Milky Way, and his eyes were like divine lights that pierced through the void. As this person appeared, the seriousness in Yi Chen's eyes intensified. Very strong. The white-robed man gave him a very strong feeling, even though he had only released a trace of his aura. But he did not know why. At that moment, he felt that the other party gave him a sense of familiarity, as if they had met before. It was a kind of intimacy that came from the bloodline. Kuyunzi glanced at the man in white and then looked at Yi Chen strangely. Do you know who this is? Yi Chen enunciated word for word. Leave. At the same time, a dozen powerful auras swept over from the ground and landed 3,000 meters away from Yi Chen. Among them were the great Xia Emperor, Emperor Hua, the North Sea Hall Master, Zi Kunlun, the Radiant Patriarch, and the one-armed old monk on the lotus platform. All of their gazes landed on the man in white. It's really the Eastly Imperial Lord. The great Xia Emperor, Emperor Hua, cried tears of joy. Although it had been 10,000 years, he could not forget this person who had once ruled the primordial era even after going through all reincarnations. It was a memory that was engraved in his bones. Greetings, Eastly Imperial Lord. The North Sea Hall Master was the first to kneel on one knee to the man in white. His eyes were brimming with tears as he said, I never thought that I would be able to see you in my lifetime. Plop, plop, plop. At that moment, the dozen or so Emperor's throne stage cultivators who had rushed over knelt respectfully to the man in white. Greetings, Eastly Imperial Lord. Their voices were like thunder, shaking the sky. However, the man in white acted as if he did not see this. His expression was wooden and he did not move. A great demon at the scene cried bitterly, Eastly Imperial Lord, I'm the little snake that you enlightened back then. Don't you remember me? Something doesn't seem right with the Eastly Imperial Lord. The Radiance Patriarch's eyes flickered as he sensed something amiss. You're right. Kuyunzi looked at Yi Chen quietly and ignored the others. A hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. Then, he said with a faint smile, everyone thought that Yi Dongli killed his way into the Immortal Palace and was killed by the heavens. In reality, that's not the case. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Yi Dongli was suppressed by the great figures of the Immortal Palace back then. His soul was imprisoned, and then he used a heaven-defying method to refine him into a puppet. Then, he was suppressed in Jixia Academy for 10,000 years. As soon as these words were spoken, the great Xia Emperor and the other dozen or so emperors' throne stage cultivators were shocked. It was as if they had heard some shocking secret. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The Radiance Patriarch roared furiously, Kuyunzi, does this mean that you've been lying to us for 10,000 years? Kuyunzi, you dog of the Immortal Palace. The North Sea Hall Master's hatred was overflowing. You actually joined forces with the Immortal Palace to do such a thing to the Eastly Imperial Lord. Kill him and avenge the Eastly Imperial Lord. The great demon who spoke earlier erupted with a terrifying ferocious aura, and then he charged at Kuyunzi. However, before he could get close to Kuyunzi, he saw the white-clothed man move. The latter gently reached out and grabbed the demon in his hand. Bang! Scarlet blood mist erupted in the air. A great demon comparable to an emperor's throne died miserably on the spot. Everyone was instantly horrified. Kuyunzi looked at Yi Chen as if he was mocking. "I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me, submit to the immortal palace, and I'll spare your life today." Fight. Yi Chen took a step forward, his battle intent soaring. Stubborn. Kuyunzi could not help but snort coldly when he saw this. He gently clenched his fist at Yi Dongli, and an extremely strange grayish-white energy immediately surged into the latter's body. Yi Dongli's body trembled slightly. Then, his eyes that seemed to want to tear through the void looked at Yi Chen. Cold, violent, bloodthirsty. Subsequently, he moved. He raised his right hand that was as white as jade and formed a palm seal that whistled at Yi Chen. Rumble. It seemed like an extremely casual attack, but it erupted with great fear that shook all directions. Heaven and earth trembled because of it, and the void trembled because of it. Pooh! 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 3,000 meters away, the great Xia Emperor and the other dozen or so people were affected by the aura that spread out, and then they urged their bodies to retreat frantically. As expected of a terrifying existence that once suppressed the primordial era. Someone spat blood, incomparably shocked. Boom! Yi Dongli's palm was like a mountain as it charged at Yi Chen. Everyone who liked Evil Nanny Dad in the city, please bookmark. Evil Nanny Dad in the city, Qing Do updated the fastest. Chapter 1271. Very powerful. He was on par with mid-stage God transformation stage. At that moment, Yi Chen's expression turned serious as he mumbled, "Are you really the ancestor of my Yi family? Otherwise, why do I feel so close to you?" At the next moment, his eyes were covered in endless coldness. "So what if you're the ancestor of my Yi family? If you stop me, I'll kill you too." Boom! Yi Chen threw a punch that crushed the void. It landed on Yi Dongli's terrifying palm. The sound of the fist shook and resounded through the starry sky. Rumble, a deafening sound rang out, causing everyone's eardrums to crack. Yi Dongli's clothes fluttered, but he remained as still as a mountain. This time, he stretched out his right arm, and the vital energy and blood in his body surged. A punch pierced through the void, displaying a supreme fist technique. Is that the Eastly Imperial Lord's sky-severing divine fist? Someone at the scene said in a horrifying manner. Great. Yi Chen did not retreat. Instead, he charged forward and waved the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It was extremely ferocious. The blood vessels on his arms were like surging volcanoes. At that moment, both of them chose the purest physical collision. Although it was pure, it was extremely violent. Bang! When the fists collided, the void collapsed, and even the area within a radius of 3,000 meters was on the verge of shattering. The frightening pressure from their attacks swept out in all directions like a tidal wave, causing everyone to be sent flying. Thud, thud, thud. Yi Dongli retreated over 30 meters. Thud, thud. Yi Chen also retreated 30 meters. Clearly, Yi Chen had the upper hand in the physical collision earlier. How is this possible? The powerhouses who retreated into the distance immediately cried out in shock. He can actually defeat the Eastly Imperial Lord? Looks like we underestimated him before. The great Xia Emperor forced a smile. He looked at Yi Chen with a complicated gaze again. This brat is truly a monster to be able to fight the Eastly Imperial Lord to such an extent. Hall Master Bai Yun's expression was grim. He did not say a word. To him, regardless of whether the Eastly Imperial Lord won or Yi Chen won, the outcome was something he did not want to see. This brat must die. Kuyunzi's pupils constricted violently. Endless killing intent surged in his eyes as he looked at Yi Chen. He was well aware of Yi Dongli's abilities. However, Yi Chen was able to defeat him. It could be seen that Yi Chen's talent was more terrifying than the former. If this kind of person was allowed to continue growing in the future, he would definitely be a threat to the immortal palace. There was a trace of golden blood at the corner of Yi Dongli's mouth. His arm that was hanging down trembled slightly. Shockingly, the web between his thumb and forefinger had been torn, and dark red blood appeared. Roar! He let out a long howl, as if the most primitive ferocity in his heart had been stimulated. Subsequently, a destructive divine gleam erupted from his palm. Peerless saber gleams slashed at Yi Chen's head one after another. At this moment, the king who had dominated the ancient barren world for an era finally unleashed his true power. It was incomparable, as if it could destroy all enemies in the world. Kill! Yi Chen let out a long howl. His surging true origin energy was like a raging river. At the same time, his powerful body was activated to its limit. He threw a punch, and his body moved along with the punch as he charged at Yi Dongli. Rumble, the two of them exchanged blows again. As loud noises rang out, they collided violently with each other. Everyone in the distance looked at this scene in shock. After an unknown period of time, when the two of them separated, they saw that Yi Dongli's body was covered in golden blood. Clearly, he was injured. On the other hand, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Yi Chen's lip. His face was slightly pale, and there was a hint of weakness in his true origin energy from his dantian. It had to be said that Yi Dongli was really too powerful. All sorts of divinities and Tao techniques emerged endlessly. Even in the cultivation world where geniuses were everywhere, he was an existence that was rarely seen in 10,000 years. Moreover, he suppressed Yi Chen with the purity of his true origin energy as a mid-stage god transformation stage. If this continued, Yi Chen's true origin energy would only be exhausted first. At that moment, Yi Dongli stretched his hand into the air. Boom! As the wind and clouds changed color, a golden halberd tore through the air. The halberd trembled, releasing a terrifying pressure. It's the demonic halberd of Apocalypse. The moment they saw the halberd, someone in the crowd could not help but gasp. It's the weapon of the Eastly Imperial Lord, the demon-slaying halberd. Oh my God, the demon-slaying halberd is still in this world. Back then, he had drunk the blood of countless enemies in the hands of the Eastly Imperial Lord. Emperor Yi is in danger now. In an instant, waves of exclamations erupted from the crowd. However, most of them were worried for Yi Chen. Kill. Yi Dongli's eyes were cold. He held the golden halberd in his hand and sliced through the sky. Countless divine gleams shot out as he charged at Yi Chen directly. 5-element heavy peak. With a thought from Yi Chen, a small mountain peak that glowed with 5-colored divine light appeared on his right hand as the void trembled. Immediately, the mountain soared into the sky and hovered above Yi Chen's head. It was as if it had streaked across the ancient times and arrived after destroying time and space. It was incomparably magnificent, making people want to kneel on the ground uncontrollably. At that moment, Yi Chen seemed to be carrying the sky on his back. Violent power wreaked havoc in all directions with him as the center. Break! Yi Chen threw with one hand. It was as if he was pushing a mountain. He crushed the void and pressed down on Yi Dongli. Rumble, the battle between the two of them using their magic treasures directly caused the weather to change. Boundless loud noises and energy attacked in all directions. Crack! The demon-slaying halberd shattered. Yi Dongli's chest caved in, and his swollen body shriveled up. No one knew if he was dead or alive. He fell from the sky, and the sound of bones shattering came from his body. Many parts of his body were deformed. Cough, cough, cough. Yi Chen coughed up blood continuously. He seemed to be injured. The Eastly Imperial Lord lost? At that moment, the void was dead silent. Everyone's souls were shaken, as if they could not accept it. Boom! At that moment, Kuyunzi, who was at the side, formed a seal and activated his divinity. He suddenly charged at Yi Chen. Yi, go to hell! Kuyunzi's expression was extremely ferocious. The technique that he had hidden for countless years was broken by Yi Chen. How could he not be furious? Apart from being furious, he was more terrified. Even though Yi Dongli was not at his peak, he was still not weaker than him. However, he was defeated by Yi Chen. He attacked very quickly, as fast as lightning. Even Yi Chen could not react in time. "You old dog that stabbed me from behind." At that moment, a terrifying ray of light suddenly appeared in the sky, directly meeting Kuyunzi's divinity. It was the Patriarch of Hell. Rumble! Following the earth-shattering explosion, the Patriarch of Hell was sent flying. One of his arms was severed on the spot, and blood flowed everywhere. On Kuyunzi's chest, there was also a bloody hole the size of a thumb that pierced through his body. Blood flowed non-stop. Like Evil Nanny Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Nanny Dad in the city, Qing Do updates the fastest. Chapter 1272. Patriarch. Yi Chen roared. He looked at the Patriarch of Hell who was being helped up by Xiao He in the distance. His eyes were filled with gratitude. Cough, cough, cough. The Patriarch of Hell coughed violently, his face terrifyingly pale. "Don't worry, I won't die yet. This old dog who ambushed me from behind won't be any better." Although that was what he said, Yi Chen realized that his face was getting paler. However, Yi Chen noticed that his face was getting paler. Clearly, he had suffered a serious injury after taking that attack for Yi Chen. "You're courting death." At that moment, a furious roar that shook the world came from Yi Chen's mouth. It was like the roar of a terrifying beast. At that moment, Yi Chen was truly furious. He turned around abruptly and locked his eyes on Kuyunzi with extreme killing intent. Then, he charged at the latter with a terrifying aura. Kuyunzi spat blood repeatedly, and his expression changed drastically. He endured the injuries on his body and tore through space to escape. First, a third of his soul was destroyed by Yi Chen. Then, he was injured by Yi Chen. He had no choice but to use Yi Dongli. Who would have thought that Yi Dongli was no match for Yi Chen? He tried to ambush Yi Chen and kill him, but he did not expect the Patriarch of Hell to appear and block his attack for Yi Chen. Although the Patriarch of Hell was injured, it also worsened his injuries. He was severely injured, and at that moment, he no longer had the strength to fight. "You can't escape." The cold words came out of Yi Chen's mouth. He lifted his hand and threw the 5-element heavy prison peak. It suppressed Kuyunzi and the space he was in directly. Rumble! The huge mountain soared through the sky, shattering the void. Fishing the moon in the water. All the hair on Kuyunzi's body stood on end. He roared furiously and used the last bit of his strength to form a seal. At the next moment, the world spun. It was as if an endless water curtain was flowing through the void, directly changing the trajectory of the 5-element heavy prison peak. Blech! Kuyunzi spat another mouthful of blood. At that moment, Yi Chen's figure approached him from afar. He punched him directly and exploded his body on the spot. Whoosh! His primordial spirit left his body as if it wanted to escape. However, Yi Chen grabbed it tightly and he could not help but scream. "You dare kill me!" Kuyunzi's primordial spirit trembled and he screamed. "That great figure left behind an immortal palace order in my body. If you kill me, you will definitely alarm that great figure. Die!" Yi Chen said coldly. The killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed again. Without saying anything more, he crushed his primordial spirit directly. Almost at that moment, countless golden shards shot out from the fragments of his soul, gathering in the air. In an instant, a golden door appeared out of thin air. There were 2 extremely ancient words on the golden door. Immortal Palace. As the golden door opened, a mighty pressure swept out from within. Immortal Palace has decreed that all those who ignore the order will be thrown into the Forbidden Sea and suppressed for 9 worlds. An incomparably dignified and terrifying voice slowly descended. 19 golden words surged out and turned into a 1,000-foot-wide black hole that swallowed Yi Chen below. In an instant, the world turned upside down and the void reversed. The Patriarch of Hell, who was 3,000 meters away, watched in shock as the black hole that looked like the bloody mouth of a ferocious beast swallowed Yi Chen. When everything returned to normal, Yi Chen was nowhere to be seen in the air. The golden door slowly closed. Dead silence, incomparably dead silence, as if none of this had happened. "Fellow Yi! Master!" Xiao He and the Patriarch of Hell shouted in unison. The great Xia Emperor and the others who were watching from afar were incomparably shocked. "The Forbidden Sea, Emperor Yi has been thrown into the Forbidden Sea." Boom! Xiao He's figure flashed and instantly landed beside the North Immortal Hall Master. He asked sternly, "Where is the Forbidden Sea?" "We don't know either." The North Immortal Hall Master smiled bitterly. "The Forbidden Sea only exists in legends. No one knows its whereabouts. The only thing we know is that it's a forbidden land that moves on its own." "What did you say?" Xiao He roared. The Radiant Patriarch sighed softly. "There's an obscure record in the Radiant Palace. It said that the Forbidden Sea is a prison. Only those who enter can't leave, and they can only die here." The others shook their heads as if they felt pity. Emperor Yi was peerless. He defeated the Eastly Emperor and killed Kuyunzi. Who would have thought that he would die today? "It's impossible, it's impossible," Little Black cried. At this moment, the North Immortal Hall Master bowed to the sky from afar. "Emperor Yi, thank you for saving us from the sea of suffering." With that, he bowed to the extreme. The others also bowed and cupped their fists, saying sincerely, "Thank you, Emperor Yi, for saving us from the sea of suffering." Before this, Kuyunzi had placed a soul-confining chain in each of their bodies. Their lives were in his hands, so they had never helped Yi Chen from the beginning to the end. "I believe that fellow Yi will be fine." The Patriarch of Hell looked at the void as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. "However, I'll destroy this immortal palace sooner or later." Xiao Man, who rushed over after hearing the news, also cried, "Brother Wushuang was sent to the Forbidden Sea, and Brother Yi was also sent to the Forbidden Sea. Could this be fate?" In Jixiao Academy, an elegant-looking middle-aged man carried Meng Meng. He looked at the Patriarch of Hell with an extremely pale face. "Patriarch, do you think Shaochen if Yi Chen was present, he would definitely realize that the middle-aged man was his father, Yi Hai?" The middle-aged woman beside her had already fainted from crying. Adorable cried so hard that she couldn't stop her tears. Although the Patriarch of Hell was unwilling to admit it, he still nodded. "But don't worry. I believe that fellow Yi will be fine. Master won't die." Xiao He's eyes were also red as he comforted. "That feathered beast has a soul contract with Master. The contract is still there, which means that Master isn't dead." Yi Hai sighed softly. Just as the father and son were about to reunite, he did not expect such a turn of events to happen. The Patriarch of Hell glanced at him and frowned. "Mr. Yi, if I remember correctly, you have a son? Why don't I see him now?" The moment that was said, Yi Hai's body trembled. He closed his eyes as if he was in pain and said, "That child was taken away when he was just a year old. Until now we haven't seen him again. Has he been taken away?" When the Patriarch of Hell heard that, his eyes flickered. "Kuyunzi is already dead. From the looks of it, he was most likely taken away by someone from the Immortal Palace." At this point, he could not help but narrow his eyes and think to himself, "Fellow Yi, I'll wait for you. I'll wait for the day you bring Yi Wushuang back. At that time, I'll accompany you into the Immortal Palace and destroy everything. As for your family, I'll protect them well like Evil Nanny Dad in the city. Please collect." Evil Nanny Dad in the city, Qing Do updates the fastest. Chapter 1273. On the day Yi Chen disappeared, a monstrous storm swept through the ancient, desolate realm. An emperor's throne powerhouse, Yi Chen, barged into Jixiao Academy and killed everyone. He killed all the powerhouses in the academy and fought with the academy's leader, Kuyunzi, above the 9 heavens. The Eastly Emperor, who had been dead for 10,000 years, reappeared. However, he was suspected to be controlled by someone and fought Yi Chen. Yi Chen defeated him and killed Kuyunzi. The immortal palace descended. This extremely explosive news was like divine thunder from the 9 heavens, shocking the entire ancient, desolate realm. The most shocking thing was that Yi Chen had Yi Dongli's bloodline. He was Yi Dongli's descendant. North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall. Shi Qianhan's eyes were about to tear blood. Brother Yi. North Sea Hall Master stood silently behind him and said, Qianhan, don't blame me. I and the others were powerless at that time. I don't blame you. Shi Qianhan clenched his fists tightly, and a murderous aura surged in the depths of his eyes. I only hate that I'm not capable enough. Otherwise, I would definitely kill my way into the so-called immortal palace and slaughter everything. Godfather, I want to enter the Yama cave. He turned around and looked at North Sea Hall Master quietly. The latter's body trembled, and fear flashed through his eyes. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, Is it worth it? The Yama cave, it was a place that even he was afraid of. Shi Qianhan's gaze was resolute. There are some things that must be done in this life. Inside the radiant palace, Jiu Er's eyes were swollen from crying. Son-in-law will be fine. Son-in-law will definitely be fine. No, I have to find him. With that, she turned around and was about to leave. The radiant patriarch stopped her and sighed faintly. Even I don't know where the taboo sea is. Where can you go to find it? On the same day, a man in a purple gold robe slowly walked over from the desolate sky. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely discover that the man looked exactly the same as the dead Di Xianling. I wonder what the Lord is thinking. The man's eyes were wild as he muttered to himself. He actually wants me to turn into this trash and go to the lower realm to clean up those bugs. His figure swayed, and he instantly teleported 1,000 kilometers away. In the end, he arrived at the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Ancient barren world, unknown land. The world was pitch black and Yi Chen could not see anything. Yi Chen's consciousness was clear. He felt that he was falling rapidly and his entire body was spinning. The abyss. An endless abyss. He tried to mobilize his true essence to stabilize his body, but he found that the true essence in his body was flowing away in an extremely strange and frantic manner, like a flood bursting a dam. Thinking to this point, he immediately sealed off his meridians and didn't dare to mobilize any more true vitality, allowing himself to fall. His body was strong, so he was not afraid of falling to his death. After an unknown amount of time, he felt himself heavily fall onto the ground. However, it seemed that he had fallen into the soft soil and did not make much noise. What happened? Yi Chen stood up and lifted his eyes to look around. What he saw was a dense forest. There were towering trees that grew wildly around him. Because the trees were too dense, sunlight couldn't shine in at all. Even during the day, the forest was still dark and damp. Where is this place? Yi Chen frowned slightly and attempted to expand his divine consciousness. However, he realized that his divine consciousness could only cover a range of 2 meters. It was as if the air, soil, and trees in this place had the effect of blocking divine consciousness. Yi Chen tried a few more times, but the result was the same. The frown on his face deepened. Puft, puft. At that moment, a light sound suddenly came from the forest in the distance. It seemed like someone was fiddling with the leaves. Yi Chen turned his head to look. He saw a woman in a simple dress squatting down with her back facing him in the bushes. Walala! Clap, clap, clap! Amidst the sound of flowing water, there was a loud sound of someone slapping a mosquito on his buttocks. Yi Chen turned his head away immediately, not knowing what to say. At the same time, the worry in his heart gradually dissipated. If there was someone, it meant that he could learn a lot of things, such as where this place was and how to leave. He thought that it would be fine after 2 minutes. However, the woman in the distance had been waiting for a long time. He did not know how long she had been holding it in for, but she was humming happily. Ah! Suddenly, the woman behind him screamed. Yi Chen turned his head to look by instinct and saw a little green snake falling from the branch above him. The woman was stunned. Yi Chen was quick to react. He picked up a stone and threw it. It hit the little snake's head on the spot and exploded. Seeing that the woman was staring at him in a daze, as if she had yet to snap back to her senses, Yi Chen could not help but walk over and smile kindly. "All right, you're fine now." It was a young girl around 18 or 19 years old. She looked pretty, but her skin was a little rough. She seemed to have done rough work often. However, the response he got was a cold and slightly angry gaze. "Did you see everything?" Yi Chen said honestly, "I saw some." The woman clenched her teeth. Her eyes were like dormant volcanoes that had been brewing for a long time. "How much is some?" Yi Chen said in between tears and laughter. "I saw that the snake almost bit you just now. Fortunately, I attacked in time." The woman looked at him in disbelief, and took a few steps back subconsciously. She said warily, "Who are you?" She was a little girl in the wilderness. If Yi Chen wanted to do anything to her, her heart could not stop beating as she thought to this point. Yi Chen smiled kindly. "I'm Yi Chen. I came here by accident. May I know your name, little sister?" "My name is Qing Qing." The woman looked at him weakly and tilted her head to think about it. She said, "This is Manjai village." Just when Yi Chen was about to speak, he heard a cry from the forest in the distance. "Quick, run. The fire-armored beast is charging this way. Hey, hey, hey!" In an instant there were 5 dark-skinned black-clothed men who saw the situation and hurriedly rushed over. "Brother!" Qing Qing hurriedly shouted to the leader of the group. Only then did the burly man notice her. He stopped in his tracks and noticed Yi Chen. He asked immediately, "Qing Qing, who is he?" "He's—" Qing Qing was about to explain. Another man urged, "Qing Shan, run. If you don't run now, it'll be too late." Roar. At the same time, 2 furious roars came from the forest. "Oh no, there's one here too!" one of the men exclaimed. Everyone was stuck. Yi Chen looked over and realized that there were demonic beasts that were about 3 meters long and covered in ferocious scales. They would spit flames from their mouths from time to time. The 2 fire-armored beasts surrounded him in a pincer attack. P.S. Chapter 5 updated today. The plot of The Forbidden Ocean won't be too long. It's mainly about uncovering some secrets of the ancient desolate realm and finding Yi Wushuang and Ying. Meanwhile, the plot of the ancient desolate realm is to defeat the Immortal Palace and save the female lead. There won't be any more powerful than the Immortal Palace. The flawless chapter of The Genius Nanny in the City will continue to be updated on Qingdou. There will be no advertisements on the site. Please bookmark and recommend Qingdou. Like Evil Nanny Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Nanny Dad in the City, Qingdou updates the fastest. Chapter 1274. Brother, Qing Qing was so scared that her body turned limp as she looked at the 2 gigantic demonic beasts that were charging at her. It was as if it was her first time experiencing such a scene. The man named Qing Shan gulped and protected her behind him by instinct. Then, he waved the long saber in his hand and looked at the 2 fire-armored beasts as if he was facing a great enemy. The 2 of them were not the only ones. The other 4 tanned men's expressions also changed drastically. They seemed to be extremely afraid of the 2 demonic beasts before them. Yi Chen's eyes flashed unnoticeably as he looked at the 2 demonic beasts. That's strange. There's no demonic energy fluctuation in these 2 beasts' bodies, so why are they at foundation building? Damn it, aren't the fire-armored beasts in the inner area of the island? Why are they here all of a sudden? Someone cursed, it's getting dark. We can't wait here for death. We have to think of a way to get rid of them. Otherwise, we'll definitely die at night. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard that. At that moment, the burly man in green who was protecting Qing gritted his teeth and said, "Hu Zi, deal with the one on the left with me. The rest of you deal with the other one." The burly man named Hu Zi nodded heavily. He bit a wooden stick in his mouth. Clearly, he was ready to fight with his life on the line. Qing Shan could not help but glance at Yi Chen after saying that, "Brother, if you don't want to die, help me too." The rest could not help but look at Yi Chen. Although he was tall, he seemed weak. They then shook their heads. In Barbarian Village, such a person was probably weaker than the little girl behind Qing Shan in terms of strength. How could he deal with the fire-armored beasts? However, Yi Chen shook his head and smiled. "There's no need. Just wait here." "What did you say?" Qing Shan was slightly stunned. Before he could react, he saw a figure dashing toward the fire-armored beast that was closest to them. "It's that brat." The few of them were in an uproar when they saw Yi Chen's face. Someone exclaimed, "What's he doing? Does he want to die?" That was a fire-armored beast. Only the village elders could kill it single-handedly. Roar. As if sensing Yi Chen's intention, the fire-armored beast on the left roared and spat a ball of flame at Yi Chen. Yi Chen dodged it easily. He used his finger as a saber and slashed its neck directly. The former died on the spot. The series of actions was completed in the blink of an eye. When everyone snapped back to their senses, they looked at Yi Chen in awe. "Master Man?" Qing Shan blurted out. "Roar." At that moment another furious roar rang in everyone's ears. Then, they saw the fire-armored beast on the right pouncing towards the Qingshan siblings. "Be careful!" Tiger shouted. The Qingshan siblings were petrified on the spot, unable to move a muscle. Just when everyone thought that the two of them would definitely die, with a "chi" sound, the fire-armored beast exploded and died. The minced meat scattered on the ground, emitting a pungent smell of blood. Qing Shan and Qing Mei fell heavily to the ground with faces full of shock, and they seemed as if they'd just walked past the gates of hell. As expected, Yi Chen secretly shook his head. At the critical moment earlier, he was forced to mobilize his true origin energy to kill the fire-armored beast and save the Qingshan siblings. However, as soon as his true origin energy was mobilized, it overflowed uncontrollably like a flood that had burst a dam. At that moment, he noticed the fire-armored beast whose neck he had severed. He bent down and picked up a black crystal. The black crystal was about the size of a fingernail. It contained coldness. When Yi Chen channeled some spiritual energy into it, the spiritual energy was devoured instantly. It was very strange. What exactly is this place? Yi Chen secretly frowned as he thought to this point. The sky was dark and the ground was hot and humid. There was no spiritual energy at all. The strange demonic beast was even rapidly dissipating the energy in its body when it breathed and walked. If he continued to use his true origin energy like this, it would be depleted sooner or later. Even the medicinal pills and spirit stones in his storage ring were no exception. At that moment, Qing Shan walked over with his sister, Qing. He knelt heavily before Yi Chen and said gratefully, "Thank you for saving our lives, Master Man." "Thank you, big brother." Qing looked at him gratefully. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and could not help but lower her head shyly. "Thank you, Master Man." The other Tan men walked over as well. They looked at Yi Chen with admiration. Yi Chen's sleeves were half open as he got everyone to stand up. "It's nothing." The sky was about to turn dark. A bonfire was lit in a dilapidated temple. The flickering flames were like stars that were about to fall. Qing Shan used the long saber that he carried with him to cut open a fire-armored beast that Yi Chen had killed earlier and roasted it on the fire. He would sprinkle some spices from time to time. Although the conditions were simple, there was still a faint fragrance of meat, which added a lot of smiles to the faces of the few people. Yi Chen sat by the fire and watched everything. He was thinking about the information that he had obtained from the few of them along the way. Through the conversation, he found out that the place he had landed was called an island. There were many villages within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, and the village that Ching Shan and the rest were in was called Man Village. What surprised him the most was that everything here was different from the outside world. The people here cultivated physical strength and were known as man masters. Ordinary people were constantly consuming energy in this world. Even the simplest breathing consumed more than 3 times more energy than ordinary people on Earth. In order to replenish their energy, Ching Shan and the rest's daily job was to hunt. By hunting wild beasts, they obtained energy from their flesh and blood. This was very similar to the primitive society on Earth. Yi Chen's eyes flickered. The voice in the Immortal Palace's gate said that it would send me into the Forbidden Sea. It seems like this place should be the Forbidden Sea. The Forbidden Sea. He calculated to himself. Xiaoman said that Wushuang challenged the Immortal Palace and was punished by the heavens. He was sent into the Forbidden Sea. Thinking to this point, he could not help but have a hint of anticipation in his eyes. In other words, I might be able to find Wushuang in this world. Just how big is this world? Where is Wushuang now? The flames that had just ignited in his eyes gradually extinguished. At that moment, a large piece of roasted meat was handed over from the side. Then, a sweet voice was heard, "Brother Yi, this is yours." Yi Chen glanced at Qing Qing, who was smiling, and then looked at the little roasted meat in Hu Zi's hand. He smiled politely. "I'm not hungry. You guys go ahead and eat." The little girl's eyes dimmed. Qing Shan, who was far away, smiled honestly. "Brother Yi, just take it. Only when you're full will you have the strength to deal with everything." Yi Chen smiled. Just when he was about to take it, he realized that there were all sorts of cries coming from outside the temple. It seemed like there were wild beasts running. At the same time, the light in the dilapidated temple dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At that moment, everyone's expressions froze. Chapter 1275. Qing Shan hurriedly shouted, "Qing Qing, big brother Yi, the darkness is coming, quickly sit over here." The rest of the people got up one after another and gathered around the fire. They huddled closely together, almost shoulder to shoulder. Immediately, they created a lot of space in the narrow and broken temple. Even Qing Qing was no exception. The little girl panicked when she saw the confusion on Yi Chen's face. "Brother Yi, come and sit here." The next moment, the cries and roars outside the dilapidated temple grew more and more intense, following which countless savage beasts swarmed in. Among them, there were gigantic tentacled monsters that looked like snails, one-legged frog-like monsters, and white apes that were as strong as bulls. These existences seemed to be hiding from something as they rushed into the dilapidated temple. They huddled together as if they did not see Yi Chen and the rest. Then, they looked outside in fear. Yi Chen followed their gaze and saw endless darkness coming from outside the dilapidated temple. Countless beasts were running madly as if they were trying to avoid it. However, the speed of the darkness was very fast. When a single savage beast fell into the darkness, the sound of chewing flesh and bones could be heard in the darkness. It was a horrifying sound. Soul quicksand? Yi Chen's eyes squinted. He couldn't be more familiar with this scene. He had once experienced it on the ghost ship. There was a terrifying existence hidden in the black fog that specialized in devouring flesh and blood. To think that he would see it here once more. It was no wonder why so many savage beasts would flee in panic. Just when Yi Chen thought the darkness would surge into the dilapidated temple, however, the darkness suddenly stopped at the entrance of the dilapidated temple and did not move an inch forward. It was as if there was an invisible door blocking them outside. Buzz, 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 spots of light appeared on the stone walls around the dilapidated temple, and the strange patterns began to wriggle as if the words had come to life. The stone statue behind them also glowed with light. The stone statue was that of a man with a long beard. He held a halberd in his hand, and his eyebrows were furrowed in anger. His body was covered in dust, and he exuded an aura of age and decay. Following that, be it Qing Shan, Zhang Xian, or the savage beasts in the dilapidated temple, they all knelt down before the stone statue, seemingly worshipping and praying. Emperor's aura, this is Emperor's aura. Yi Chen looked at the stone statue before him quietly. He could not help but be moved when he sensed the aura on its body. The stone statue could actually emit the majesty of the Emperor's throne realm. It was this imperial aura that blocked the darkness from the outside world outside the dilapidated temple, thus saving all living beings. He sucked in a breath of cold air. This is an Emperor's throne powerhouse that has turned into a stone statue? Thinking of this, he slowly stood up and walked towards the stone statue, trying to reach out and touch it. Roar! At that moment, all the wild beasts that were kneeling on the ground roared at Yi Chen, as if they were warning him. Big brother Yi, you can't do that. The expressions of Qing Shan and the others changed greatly. This is our guardian god, we cannot blaspheme him. Yi Chen could only give up. He returned to where he was and sat down, but his mind could not stop thinking. This stone statue must have been a strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne realm when he was alive, but why did he turn into a stone statue? Why would it appear in the taboo ocean? Could it be that he's being suppressed here just like me? Time passed bit by bit. The dilapidated temple was extremely quiet. Whether it was Qing Shan's group or the many beasts gathered on the other side, they all maintained a delicate situation. No one made a move. When dawn broke and the first ray of sunlight shone on the dilapidated temple, the darkness outside the dilapidated temple dissipated. The beasts retreated. Qing Shan and the rest cheered as they walked out of the dilapidated temple to fetch water. However, they seemed to be used to all of this. Yi Chen followed behind them. As soon as he left the dilapidated temple, he saw all sorts of bones piled up on the grass outside. They seemed to have been left behind last night. From time to time, a vulture would land with a piece in its mouth and fly away. Yi Chen walked side by side with Qing Shan and probed, "Did what happened last night happen often?" "Yes, brother Yi." Qing Shan nodded and said with a serious expression, "As long as it's night time, no one is allowed to go out. We have to stay at home. This has been our village's ancestral teaching since ancient times." At this point, he could not help but exhort, "Brother Yi, you saw the danger last night. The elders said that there's a terrifying existence in the darkness that can eat people. Then, how does your village protect itself in the darkness?" Yi Chen asked again. Qing Shan smiled and said, "Because our village has stone statues like the dilapidated temple, and there are quite a few of them. Every time it turns dark, these stone statues protect us." Yi Chen secretly nodded. The doubt in his heart was immediately resolved. He said, "Do you know the origin of these stone statues?" "I don't know." Qing Shan scratched his head and said in confusion, "These stone statues have existed for a long time. They can be traced back to before our village was established." Yi Chen could not help but be disappointed. "Right." Qing Shan seemed to have thought of something and added, "I think I heard the elders say that these stone statues are our ancestors." "Ancestors?" Yi Chen could not help but glance at him when he heard that. He thought to himself, "So, this brat is the descendant of an emperor's throne powerhouse? This world could devour the true origin energy and true chi of cultivators, so martial artists and cultivators could not live at all. They could only rely on brute force to survive. Logically speaking, there should not be an emperor's throne powerhouse. Then, the only explanation was that these emperor's throne powerhouses came from the outside world. After connecting it to his own experience, he could not help but make a bold guess. It seems like these emperor's throne powerhouses were also suppressed here by the immortal palace. As for how long, he did not know. The only thing he knew was that even if an emperor's throne powerhouse fell here, he would become a cripple and could only rely on brute force to survive. It seems like this immortal palace is not simple. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes. Judging from the method that person used to beat me into the Forbidden Sea, he must be at the advanced stage god transformation stage, or even higher. That would be the void refinement stage. Even with Yi Chen's temperament, he could not help but tense up as he thought to this point. There was actually a void refinement stage cultivator in a mere ancient desolate realm that was parallel to Earth. Anyone would be surprised. Of course, this was only his guess. As for whether it was true or not, he did not know yet. The current plan is to understand the Forbidden Sea first and then find a way to find out where Wushuang is. When the time comes, I'll bring him out of this place. Thinking to this point, his gaze could not help but pause on Qing Shan. Perhaps the elder he mentioned should know something. At this moment, several figures rushed over from afar. The leader was a middle-aged man wearing beast skin with strong arms. Qing Shan, are you guys all right? Father. Qing Shan was overjoyed when he saw them. Then, he brought a few people to welcome them and said excitedly, Father, we're all fine. Why are you guys here? Chapter 1276. Before the middle-aged man could speak. You brats went hunting and didn't return all night. How could we not be worried? An old man with wrinkles all over his face walked out from behind him and scolded jokingly, We came looking for you guys as soon as the sun rose. I'm glad that you guys are fine. The middle-aged man took a good look at them while smiling. He noticed Yi Chen and frowned. Who is he? At the same time, the few people behind him also looked at Yi Chen. There was a hint of wariness in their eyes. Qing immediately told him what had happened. Father, Brother Yi is our savior. She then introduced Yi Chen. Brother Yi, this is my father, Yang Hong, I'm Yi Chen. Yi Chen introduced himself. So, it's you, Brother Yi. Yang Hong and the rest were less hostile toward Yi Chen after understanding what happened. Since you're my son's savior, why don't you come to Manjai village and rest for a while? Yi Chen nodded while smiling. Of course, he was willing to. Soon, Yi Chen arrived at Manjai village with Yang Hong and the rest. The village was huge with up to 1,000 families. There was also a stone statue next to the big pagoda tree at the entrance of the village. It was inconspicuous as if it was a watchstone. The village was spacious, but the decorations were a little crude. Most of them were made of stone, and there were even courtyards made of animal bones. As soon as Yi Chen entered the village, he saw many hunting teams returning. Some of them were carrying an earth dragon that looked like a giant lizard. Old Yang, I told you that your son is still here. If I didn't stop you last night, you would have carried the stone statue out to look for him. A burly man carrying a giant savage beast joked with Yang Hong, and the rest of the people laughed along with him. On the other hand, Qing Shan's eyes were slightly red. He looked at Yang Hong's back as if he was touched. The stone statues in the village were as heavy as 10,000 caddies. Ordinary people wouldn't even be able to move them, let alone carry them. Although his father was one of the best in the village, it would still be difficult for him to carry a stone statue. Old Yang is back. Huzi, get your ass over here. A bunch of idiots. You went out to hunt and didn't come back in time. You made everyone worry for the whole night. Many people rushed out from every corner of the village, pulling their ears and cursing as they led their children back. In the village, the Yang family. Yang Hong's father, who was known as the elder, had white hair and a hunched back. He looked at Yi Chen and said, Young man, although I don't know where you came from, I can tell that you're not an ordinary person. Our village will always repay your kindness. I just hope that you won't bring us any trouble. His eyes were cloudy, and his teeth were about to fall off. However, his gaze was incomparably sinister, and no one dared to underestimate him. Elder, you're being too serious. Yi Chen smiled kindly. I have no ill intentions towards your village. I'll leave after staying for a while. I won't disturb your life. Our barbarian village doesn't take care of idle people. Aside from the old, the weak, the sick and the disabled, all men and women must go out to hunt. Those who are gluttonous and lazy will be driven out. You saved Qing and the others, we will naturally repay you generously. The old barbarian elder nodded slightly. During these 3 days you can eat and drink for free in our house, but once the 3 days are over, if you want to stay then you must go out and work like the others. I understand. Yi Chen nodded and smiled. For the rest of the time, Yi Chen stayed in Barbarian Village. Although the villagers were surprised by his arrival, they still welcomed him after knowing that he had saved people. Many children in the village, and Qing Shan and the rest would surround Yi Chen when they were free, begging him to teach them some martial arts. In response, Yi Chen taught them some body refining technique. Although they could not achieve immortality directly, it was a piece of cake for them to cultivate it to perfection. They could pierce the moon in the sky and capture dragons in the sea. In the past few days, he had gained a deeper understanding of this world once again. Almost everyone in the village cultivated body refining technique. They did not have the concept of qi refinement. They only pursued martial arts to kill wild beasts and birds with 10 pickle bows. In reality, they could not even cultivate qi refinement if they wanted to. Even Yi Chen realized that the true origin energy in his body had weakened to the nascent soul stage on the 3rd day he arrived in Barbarian Village. If this continued, his true origin energy would be completely drained in less than a month. By then, he might not even be able to open his storage ring. Meanwhile, they categorized their cultivation stage into Barbarian Apprentice, Barbarian Soldier, Barbarian Master, Great Barbarian Master, Barbarian King, Barbarian Emperor, Barbarian Venerable, Barbarian Saint. For example, Qing Shan, the outstanding young man from Barbarian Village, only had a cultivation base of a Barbarian Soldier. The person with the highest cultivation base in the village was Yang Hong's father, who was Qing Shan's grandfather. He was a great Barbarian Master. This place is as big as China? Yi Chen found out from the old man in the village. He could not help but release a sigh of relief. China had an area of 9.6 million square kilometers. It was over 5,000 kilometers from the south to the north. Meanwhile, the Forbidden Ocean was only over 5,000 kilometers from the north to the south. That saved him a lot of time looking for Wushuang. After all, the map was only that big. He could find it after spending some time. I've traveled outside Barbarian Village when I was young. The person who was talking to Yi Chen was an old man in the village. He had lived for 200 years, making him the oldest person in the village. Although he was also 200 years old, he seemed to be in good spirits. He was much more knowledgeable than the people in the village. Yi Chen's eyes flickered. You're saying that people live in tribes here? That's right. The old man's voice was clear. Barbarian Village and the dozen villages around us belong to the Dark Dragon tribe. I heard that the tribe's elder has lived for 500 years. He has the cultivation base of a barbarian king. Woo woo. As he spoke, the sound of a horn suddenly resounded in the village. It was extremely oppressive, and it instantly alerted the entire barbarian village. The old man's eyes lit up and his lips moved slightly. The horn is blown 3 times. The people from the Dark Dragon tribe are here. At the entrance of Barbarian Village, all the villagers were gathered. They stood in an orderly manner. Regardless of their gender, age, or gender, all of them stared at the 2 people in front with their eyes wide open. They were a man and a woman. The man was a young man, and the aura he exuded made the people feel pressured. Meanwhile, the woman was extremely young. She wore a long gown made of goose down, revealing her fair neck. Qing Shan and the rest in the crowd were drooling when they saw her. As the elder, Yang Hong's father took a step forward and said in a trembling voice, "May I know why Master Wu is here?" The young man looked at the elder and took out a portrait. The great barbarian elder has ordered that from today onwards, all villages, including your barbarian village, are to investigate this person closely. The woman beside him chuckled. If you have any accurate information, the great barbarian elder will personally cleanse your meridians after you report it to him. You will also be rewarded handsomely. The moment she said that, everyone's eyes widened as if they were shocked. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Who was the great barbarian elder? He was the true ruler of Dark Dragon Tribe. He was also the only berserker king in Dark Dragon Tribe. In the eyes of the villagers, he was no different from a god. However, the reward this time would allow the great barbarian elder to personally cleanse his meridians, as well as other rewards. How could everyone not be tempted by that? As the young man with the surname Wu opened the portrait, a man with a green face and fangs was revealed. His appearance scared many children so much that they started crying. Yi Chen, who was in the crowd, had a strange expression on his face when he saw that. Ing came to the Forbidden Ocean too? P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated today. The plot of the Forbidden Ocean will speed up tomorrow. Can you guess why Ing came to the Forbidden Ocean? There's a foreshadowing in the previous chapter. Chapter 1277. Yi Chen looked at the painting that had scared many children to tears. Although the painter's painting was rather exaggerated and hardcore, Yi Chen could tell at a glance that it was Ing. Although he had little contact with Ing, he thought he knew him quite well. The person in the painting was very similar to Ing in terms of temperament, gaze, and even facial features. He connected the dots and recalled that Ing had mentioned the Forbidden Ocean to him before. Ing had mysteriously disappeared after the battle on Mount Tangwu. Therefore, Yi Chen was certain that the man in the painting was Ing. However, why would he appear in the Forbidden Ocean? Why would he be wanted by the Dark Dragon Tribe? As he thought to this point, he could not help but lift his head to look at the man and woman before the crowd. Both of them had the cultivation base of a barbaric master. Looking at the man in the painting, the old barbarian elder, who was Yang Hong's father, could not help but say, "Master Wu, may I ask what crime this man has committed?" He knew very well that a person who was wanted by the entire Dark Dragon Tribe must be extraordinary. Meanwhile, if the barbarian village did not figure out the reason, there might be hidden dangers. The young man said in annoyance, "Just do as I say. Why are you asking so many questions?" As he spoke to this point, he glanced at the crowd and said, "Report to me immediately if any strangers come to your village." Yang Hong, Qing Shan, and the rest's expressions changed unnaturally when they heard that. They seemed to have thought of Yi Chen, but they did not say anything. "Don't worry, Master Wu. I understand." The old barbarian elder nodded with his hunched back. "I'll send someone to report to the Dark Dragon Tribe if there's any news." "That's for the best. Don't forget to attend the barbaric sacrifice ceremony in 3 days." The young man's expression softened. He then led the lady next to him and rode on a giant snail-like beast. They left. After watching the duo leave, the old barbarian elder looked at the crowd and waved. "Disperse." In the Yang residence, Yi Chen clasped his fists at the old barbarian elder and said gratefully, "Thank you for not telling me about me earlier." The old barbarian elder could have told the young man and the woman about Yi Chen in exchange for rewards. However, he did not. Even the villagers in the entire barbarian village did not. That surprised Yi Chen. "There's no need for that." The old barbarian elder shook his head and said, "I believe in physiognomy. My young friend, you look like a decent person and don't seem like a wicked person. Besides, you saved Qing Qing and her sister." He seemed to have recalled something as he spoke to this point. He looked at Yi Chen and said, "But if you want to stay in my barbarian village or the Dark Dragon Tribe, you'll need an identity." Who were those two? Yi Chen did not answer the question. The old man said in a low voice, "The man's name is Wu Heng and the woman's name is Bai Ling. They are both from Dark Dragon Tribe. Wu Heng is the great barbarian elder's great-great-grandson." Yi Chen said again, "How do you plan to find the man in Wu Heng's painting?" Yi Chen was afraid that he would overthink, so he added, "I don't mean anything else. I just feel that I'll definitely help if I can." These people wanted to find Ing, but so did he. Perhaps when he met Ing, he would be able to completely understand this world and find Wushuang faster. "Of course, I'm just brushing you off." The old man did not avoid the topic. he said with a vicious look in his eyes. There are many powerhouses in the Dark Dragon tribe, and the great barbarian elder is here. Someone who's wanted by the Dark Dragon tribe won't be an ordinary person. Our barbarian village is small and weak. We'll be doomed if we fall into the trap. His eyes flickered and he sighed softly. Although the reward is tempting, you need to be able to enjoy it. Yi Chen was speechless. He had to get to know the old man again. No wonder he became the barbarian village's elder. How could an ordinary person compare to him with his intelligence? What did Wu Hing mean by the barbarian sacrifice before he left? Yi Chen asked again. The old barbarian elder took a good look at him and said, "My young friend, you don't even know about the barbarian sacrifice. I really doubt that you're from the Dark Dragon tribe or even the Sky Demon County." He stopped there and didn't pursue the matter any further. Then, he said, "I believe little friend has a general understanding of our lifestyle. The place where we live is lacking in resources. We can only survive by hunting. Children are trained to fight wild beasts since they're born." His face was filled with sorrow. "We respect nature, but we also challenge it. The barbarian sacrifice is an annual event held by all the villages and tribes. During the barbarian sacrifice, we'll offer the bones of the most powerful wild beasts we've hunted. We'll compete with each other and the winner will receive many benefits." He paused and said, "For example, we'll bring in more people or redivide our hunting territories." "Old man, I wonder if I can go and take a look?" Yi Chen asked after hesitating. He would not stay in the Forbidden Ocean for long. Therefore, staying in the barbarian village was not a long-term plan. He could use the so-called barbarian sacrifice to look for Wushuang. Just when the old barbarian elder was about to speak, he suddenly heard crying and many people arguing outside. He frowned and could not help but get up and walk out with Yi Chen. He saw a few injured men surrounded by many villagers. A few of them were holding weapons in their hands and their faces were filled with hatred. "The people from the barbarian village have crossed the line. No, don't stop me. I'll fight them. Otherwise I won't be able to take this lying down. Hu Zi, get someone to go. The barbarian village is not to be bullied. Calm down, don't act rashly." The village was filled with arguments. Some were cursing while others were trying to persuade them. It was very noisy. The old barbarian elder walked to the crowd and shouted with a grim expression, "What's going on? The barbarian elder is here. Make way, everyone! Elder, you have to uphold justice for us." The noisy crowd immediately surrounded them. Yi Chen pushed the crowd aside and saw 3 middle-aged men lying on the ground. They were covered in blood at the moment, but their lives were not in danger. One of them was Qing Shan's father, Yang Hong. His right shoulder was pierced by an arrow made of beast bones. He was bleeding profusely. The old barbarian elder's expression changed slightly when he saw that. He went to him immediately. "Hong-er, are you all right?" Yang Hong's face was pale as he shook his head lightly. The old barbarian elder slammed his palm on Yang Hong's left shoulder, and the arrow on his right shoulder flew out. He then took out a packet of medicinal powder and sprinkled it on Yang Hong's right shoulder. He then said in his deep voice, "What exactly happened?" "Elder, the people from the barbarian spirit village did this. My father brought some people out to hunt, and they encountered a dragon-horned elephant. They only managed to injure it after much effort." At that moment, Qing Shan clenched his fists and said, "But the people from the barbarian spirit village suddenly crossed the border and said that the dragon-horned elephant was theirs. They attacked us and almost killed my father with an arrow. They even took the dragon-horned elephant away." End of chapter. Chapter 1278. As soon as Qing Shan was done speaking, many villagers were enraged. Quite a number of Berserker village villagers were enraged. If it were not for the old Berserker elder intimidating them, they might have attacked a long time ago. Yi Chen secretly shook his head. It seemed like there was a conflict between the two villages over prey. However, it made sense. The barbaric spirit village has crossed the line. The area within 50 kilometers of our village is our hunting range. That's publicly known. They're here to cause trouble, so they can't do anything even if they go to the Dark Dragon tribe. We have to get an explanation from them." At that moment, the few elders who had rushed over were enraged. Yang Hong and the rest were the village's powerful labor force. Now that they were injured, spending herbs to heal them was a small matter. Most importantly, everyone was counting on them to hunt to feed their families. "Elder, please give the order. Let's fight them, or else this will happen again in the future." "That's right, we must kill them." The eyes of Qing Shan, Hu Zi, and the rest of the younger generation were bloodshot. They could not wait to bring their men to take revenge. Just as the old elder was about to comfort them, he seemed to have thought of something. "Oh yeah, where's Shanbao?" Qing Shan's eyes were wet. Uncle Shanbao was captured by the barbaric spirit village. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard that. The old elder's eyes turned cold, as if he was truly enraged. "Flying Leopard, gather everyone and follow me to the barbaric spirit village to get him." "Sure." A muscular man in the crowd grinned, as if he could not hold it in any longer. He immediately spread the elder's words to all the families. In an instant, 2/3 of the young men in the village were mobilized. One could see how united the village was. Yi Chen followed the group as well. The group walked out of the village in a mighty manner. Their anger was getting more intense. As they passed through the dense bushes, there were blood stains everywhere. There were also wild beast carcasses that they missed. The man in the lead suddenly fell into the bushes. After the people rescued him, they realized that there were many bloody holes under his feet. Meanwhile, there was a row of beast-catching spikes in the stone pit that he fell into. It must be the barbaric spirit village. One of the elders was so angry that his beard was shaking. "Although we've set traps, we've marked them so that we won't hurt our own people." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone became even angrier. The people of Barbarian Spirit Village had crossed the boundary to capture beasts, injured their people, and even set up such a vicious trap to plot against them. The old berserker's face was dark the entire time, and he did not say a single word. He led the group and traveled 20 lis before they finally arrived at a rather wide and flat area. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something tearing through the air came from the forest. "Be careful!" Yi Chen, who noticed it first, reminded them in time. The old elder's ears twitched slightly. He immediately pushed away the man before him, then stretched his hand into the air. Buzz, buzz, buzz! Suddenly, an incomparably sharp arrow appeared in his hand, trembling violently. Obviously, the archer's strength was not low. The face of the man who had been pushed out was incomparably pale. How dangerous! If that arrow had hit him, even if he didn't die, he would have been severely injured. Yi Chen pointed. "There's someone in the distance." Everyone immediately looked in his direction, and saw a young man standing with a bow thousands of feet away. He was looking at them with a malicious gaze. "Elder, it's him." A man who had participated in the hunt earlier glared at the young man in the distance. "This brat injured old Yang with one arrow. What a vicious young man!" The old berserker took a deep breath in and said, "Bring me my 10-pickle bow." The people could not help but feel excited. 2 people walked over with a huge black bow in their arms. It weighed at least 250 kilograms, but the old berserker held it easily. Crack, crack, crack. The old berserker pulled the arrow hard and pulled the bowstring into a full moon shape. The arrow was pointed at the young man. Yi Chen's eyes flashed unnoticeably when he saw that. The ancient people measured strength in stone, Don. A stone bow usually required an arm strength of 350 to 500 kilograms to be able to pull it. A famous ancient general could pull a 3-pickle bow at most. Meanwhile, a 10-pickle bow would require an arm strength of over 1,500 kilograms to pull it. The old berserker looked like he was old, but he had such arm strength. It was no wonder that he was the #1 in Barbarian Village. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through the air, and charged at the young man in the distance like a bolt of lightning, leaving a long white trail in the air. The young man first moved, then he pulled the bowstring and shot an arrow, as if he wanted to stop the old berserker's arrow. Clang, clang, two thick iron arrows crashed into each other in the air. Sparks flew everywhere and a piercing sound rang in the air. The old berserker's arrow shattered the young man's arrow and went straight for the young man's throat without losing any momentum. Many of the barbarian villagers were extremely excited. It was as if they could see the vicious young man being killed with one arrow. Boom! At that moment another arrow shot out from the forest. It knocked the old berserker's arrow onto the ground before the old berserker could kill the young man. The young man escaped from danger. He was terrified. At the same time, an old man slowly walked out from the forest. Yang Wei, you're already so old, but you attacked a young man like that. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? It was an old man in black with age spots all over his face. He held a huge bow in his hand, and there were many unfriendly-looking men following behind him. The elder of Barbarian Spirit Village, Qing Shan, and the others glared at the old man in black. Zhu Rong. The old berserker snorted coldly and narrowed his eyes. It's one thing for you to trespass into our hunting grounds without permission, but you even stole our prey, injured our people, and set up a vicious trap. What kind of logic is this? I think there might be some misunderstanding between us. The old man in black put on a fake smile. Besides, young people are hot-tempered. It's inevitable that they make mistakes. The moment he said this, many of the barbarian villagers glared at him. It was as if they were angered by his shameless words. Mistakes? The old berserker laughed out of extreme anger and said, Zhu Rong, our village's mountain treasure is in your hands. If you don't want to make things worse, then hand it over. Mountain treasure? The old man in black's eyes sparkled. He smiled and said, Brother Yang, I think you're mistaken. We didn't take him away. T. Qing Shan, who was in the crowd, could not help but stand out. I saw you guys take Uncle Mountain treasure away with my own eyes. Are you trying to deny it? I saw it too. Another man said. Where's the evidence? The people of Barbarian Spirit Village shouted. Both sides immediately quarreled, and they almost drew their weapons. However, Yi Chen took a good look at the old man in black. If it was a normal hunt, the village chief would not have come personally, right? Moreover, the entire Barbarian Spirit Village had come this time. They knew that this was the Barbarian Village's hunting grounds, but they still did not turn back. Unless there was something here that attracted them. At that moment, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the forest. End of this chapter. Chapter 1279. This sudden beast roar immediately broke the tense atmosphere at the scene. Yi Chen looked in the direction of the sound and saw that the dense forest 3,000 meters away suddenly trembled. Then, a huge fire swept out. Amidst the flames, an incomparably huge figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. The figure seemed to be a giant rhinoceros that was more than 20 meters tall. Its body was a little shriveled, and its body was extremely heavy. It crushed many towering trees. The most eye-catching thing was that the horn on its head shone with divine light. It seemed to be injured and was struggling for its life. Ancient beast, full moon rhinoceros. At that moment, a voice filled with shock came from the old elder's mouth. At that moment, the old elder's eyes were fixed on the gigantic body, and his face was filled with disbelief. Wild beasts ran rampant in the Forbidden Sea, and there was no lack of powerful wild beasts. These wild beasts had the ability to overturn the sky and the sea, and they had lived for countless years. Some people called these existences ancient beasts. If they encountered an ancient beast, it would be a disaster that would destroy a village or a tribe. Even the powerful berserker venerable among humans would not be able to deal with it. However, there was an ancient beast that was on the verge of death here. A hint of panic flashed through the eyes of the elder of the barbaric spirit village, the old man in black, as if some secret had been discovered. Yi Chen's eyes were fixed on the ancient beast, and his gaze was focused on the latter's neck. There were 2 bloody holes there, and at this moment they were gurgling with blood that was like lava. Tooth holes? Yi Chen's eyes focused. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind when he connected it to the ancient beast's slightly shriveled body. Ing. This ancient beast had been bitten by Ing. Didn't that mean that Ing had appeared here before? Thinking to this point, he subconsciously wanted to get closer to the ancient beast and check if there was corpse poison in the 2 tooth holes. Ing was a zombie, so there would definitely be corpse poison in the wounds it had bitten. If the corpse poison spread throughout its body and controlled its mind, it would become its vassal. Brat, stop right there. The old man in black's expression changed drastically. He then glared at Yi Chen. This was discovered by the barbaric spirit village. I understand. This old man finally understands. The old elder of the Berserker village suddenly laughed out loud. Zhu Rong, no wonder you would personally lead your men into the hunting grounds of the Berserker village. No wonder you would order your men to kill us. So it was all because of this ancient beast. He looked at the old man in black robes and enunciated each word clearly. You want to bring it back before we discover it so that you can shine during the Berserker sacrifice 3 days later. As soon as he said that, the people of Barbarian Village were enraged, and they were ready to fight. If an ancient beast appeared in their village, then it belonged to them. No outsider could take it away from them. Secondly, the barbaric spirit village had barged into their hunting territory and injured so many people. Both sides had long since formed a grudge. Besides, if they managed to take it away, they would become the nightmare of Berserker village once they obtained first place in the Berserker sacrificial ceremony 3 days later. Since you found out, the black-robed old man's gaze turned cold, and a faint killing intent flashed in his eyes. Then I can only kill you. He was determined to obtain the ancient beast's body. Attack! As soon as the old barbarian elder gave the order, the people behind him who could no longer hold back immediately charged forward. Huge swords sliced through the air. Cold light flashed, and killing intent filled the air, causing the leaves on the ground to rustle. The village battle had begun. Some people held huge swords, some swung maces, and some shot arrows. Shouts of killing and screams of pain interweave. Yang Wei, we haven't fought for decades. I'd like to see how much you've improved. The black-robed old man shouted. With a flash, he weaved through the fighting crowd and charged at the old barbarian elder. Perfect timing. The old barbarian elder did not want to be left behind and went forward. Qing, who was next to Yi Chen, cursed with a flushed face. You stole the food that we rely on to survive and almost killed my father. You've gone too far. Whoosh. At that moment, the young man from before knocked his bow and shot an arrow at Qing. Although the little girl was strong, how could she fight against such a fast and powerful arrow? She could only close her eyes in despair. Yi Chen was quick. He extended his hand and grabbed the bow and arrow when it was less than an inch away from the little girl. The young man was shocked as well. Clearly, he did not expect there to be such an expert in Barbarian Village. He then knocked his arrow again, as if he wanted to shoot Yi Chen. You're courting death. Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. He threw the bow and arrow in his hand at the old man gently. The old man was nailed to a tree by the arrow. He did not see how Yi Chen's arrow was so fast. The scene attracted everyone's attention. The people from Barbarian Village cheered, but the expressions of the people from Barbarian Spirit Village changed drastically. Quan. When the black-robed old man who was fighting with the old barbarian elder saw the young man's death, he roared and punched the old barbarian elder despite being heavily injured. Die, brat! The black-robed old man abandoned the old barbarian elder and flew. He slapped Yi Chen with a venomous expression. The young man was his grandson, the genius of Barbarian Spirit Village. No one below the great barbarian master could defeat him in archery. Now that he was killed by Yi Chen, How could he not be furious? "Brother Yi, watch out!" At that moment, Ching cried out in alarm. "Oh no!" The old barbarian elder's expression changed slightly. He moved his body and charged at Yi Chen quickly in an attempt to save him. Zhu Rong was the elder of Barbarian Spirit Village. He was also a great barbarian master like him. How could a young man like Yi Chen be his match? However, the next scene caused everyone to be flabbergasted, and it was as if they had seen a ghost. Just as the black-robed old man's palm was about to land on Yi Chen, the latter stretched out a hand and grabbed the old man's neck accurately. He lifted the old man into the air. He captured a great barbarian master alive. The old barbarian elder was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out. "Brother Yi is so powerful?" Ching and Ching Shan were extremely shocked. They had seen Yi Chen fight before, but they did not expect that even the elder of Barbarian Spirit Village was no match for him. The black-robed old man struggled. There was deep fear in his eyes as he looked at Yi Chen. "Why you?" Yi Chen shattered the joints in his limbs directly and threw him on the ground. He walked slowly toward the ancient beast in the distance. During the battle, the ancient beast had already died. Its wound had already scabbed over, and it was extremely hard. Yi Chen reached out and pinched a piece of it. He could not help but smile after sensing the corpse poison in it. Looks like it was really bitten by Ying. This ancient beast was at least a martial venerable when it was alive. He believed that no one in the entire Dark Dragon tribe could hurt it. Thinking to this point, he activated his true origin energy, and 2 golden flames bloomed in his eyes. He looked at the ancient beast's corpse and said softly, "Golden pupil flame, soul capture." As the golden flames flickered, a black shadow shot into his eyes from the ancient beast's body. It was the ancient beast's soul. After Yi Chen activated the golden pupil flame and refined the former's soul, he immediately obtained a memory of something. It was a memory of the ancient beast before it died. After digesting the memory, Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly. Ying was injured. End of this chapter. Chapter 1280. Ying is injured? Yi Chen obtained his memories before he died through the ancient beast's soul that he absorbed. However, the information he obtained exceeded his expectations. He had no idea how powerful Ying was. They had never fought each other ever since they arrived at the ancient desolate realm from Earth. Yi Chen's eyes could not stop sparkling as he thought to this point. Could he have been injured by the Immortal Palace? That's why he ended up in the Forbidden Ocean? The intense battle quieted down as the old man in black, the elder of the barbaric spirit village, was crippled by Yi Chen. Everyone looked at him with fear in their eyes, especially the people from the barbaric spirit village. One must know that the barbaric spirit village's elder, Zhu Rong, was a great barbaric master. Even the old elder of the village could not kill him. However, Yi Chen crippled him so easily. After a moment of silence, the old elder walked over while trembling. He bowed to Yi Chen in all seriousness. "I didn't know that you're the barbaric king, sir. Please forgive me." He could capture the great barbaric master alive. He had to at least be the barbaric king. Yi Chen stood up slowly and said while shaking his head, "I'm not the barbaric king. You captured Zhu Rong alive in one move, sir." The old elder was even more respectful now. "I believe you've refined the 3 treasures of the human body and entered the blood integration stage. Even if you're not the barbaric king, you're no different from one." One could not refine qi in the Forbidden Ocean. They could only cultivate their bodies. Beginners could only master greater power by breaking the 3 treasures of the human body. The so-called 3 treasures of the human body were refining the skin, bones, and marrow. Even the barbaric master, the old elder, was still refining the bones in his body. The so-called bone refining was refining the bones in his body. Normally, people would start refining from their limbs. That was why there was wind under their feet and their arms could shoot a 10-pickle bow. If they refined the brain too, they would not die even if they were hacked by knives and axes. Meanwhile, the marrow refining was refining the 5 organs. That way, even if they were hit by a huge impact, their organs would not collapse. That was why the young men of the village could fight the powerful beasts with their bare hands. Yi Chen forced a smile at his persistence. He stopped explaining and let it be. At that moment, he noticed that the old elder's gaze was fixed on the ancient beast's body, as if he wanted to say something but did not dare. Yi Chen said while smiling lightly, "Feel free to take it if you want it, old man. It's not useful to me at all." It was only a demonic beast equivalent to a martial saint. He was not interested in it. Furthermore, he had troubled the barbarian village quite a bit over the past few days. This could be considered repayment. "Thank you, my lord." The old elder was instantly overjoyed when he heard it, then called out to the people to carry the ancient beast away. Qing Shan suddenly pointed at Zhu Rong and the people of Savage Spirit Village lying on the ground. "Elder, what should we do with these people?" "Kill them. Yes, we must kill them. If it wasn't for Lord Yi, our fate today would be unimaginable." In an instant, many people's eyes were filled with killing intent. As soon as he said that, everyone in the Savage Spirit Village was so scared that their faces turned ashen. They all knelt on the ground and kowtowed. "Brother Yang, you cannot kill me." Zhu Rong, who was lying on the ground, had a slight change of expression. "I'm willing to surrender. I can guarantee that the Savage Spirit Village will never step into your land ever again." The Savage Spirit Village and the Barbarian Village belonged to the Dark Dragon tribe. The Dark Dragon tribe did not allow the 2 villages to fight to the death. The old elder hesitated for a moment, then his expression turned cold. "Kill them all." As soon as he said that, Qing Shan and the rest of the Barbarian Village people could not help but charge at the Savage Spirit Village people. As the elder, Zhu Rong, was crippled, the people of the Savage Spirit Village were no match for the Barbarian Village people. Soon, the place was filled with corpses with the pungent smell of blood. Yi Chen turned a blind eye to that. That was the reality. The Savage Spirit Village wanted to use the ancient beast's body to hunt across borders and even kill the people of the Barbarian Village. The old elder walked toward Zhu Rong. The latter's expression changed drastically when he saw that. "Yang, how are you going to explain it to the Dark Dragon tribe if you kill me?" The old elder stopped walking and said with a scoff, "Who would know that you died in the hands of the Barbarian Village? What if you were killed by this ancient beast?" As soon as he was done speaking, Zhu Rong's face turned pale. He could not help but curse out loud. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the Savage Spirit Village was completely destroyed. There were only a few people from the Barbarian Village who were injured, but there were no deaths. "Flying Leopard, bring them to Savage Spirit Village and take over their territory. If they resist, kill them without mercy." The old elder was grinning from ear to ear. He ordered, "The rest of you carry this big guy back." All right. As they split up, many people found ropes to tie the ancient beast's carcass. They carried it back to the village with much difficulty. Such a big guy must have rich vital energy and blood in his body. If we eat it, our abilities will definitely improve. That's right. Its blood can be used to brew medicine for the kids in the village to train their bodies. Perhaps they'll become powerful like Lord Yi in the future. Many of the elders were grinning like chrysanthemums. Qing, who was in the crowd, looked around and suddenly exclaimed, Where's Brother Yi? Why don't I see him?" Everyone stopped and looked around. They realized that Yi Chen had really disappeared. Qing looked disappointed. "Brother Yi didn't leave, did he? Go back." The old elder sighed softly and waved his hand. "Our village can't keep someone like Lord Yi." Night fell and darkness fell. Many fluorescent lights lit up around the barbarian village. It was the light of the stone statues that protected the small mountain village. Just when the villagers of the barbarian village were holding a bonfire dinner, Yi Chen appeared again. Qing, who was hiding in the corner, had her eyes lit up. She then went up to him happily. "Brother Yi, you're back? Lord Yi." The old elder and the rest stood up. All the villagers looked at Yi Chen with admiration. They found out about what happened during the day from Qing Shan and the rest. They knew that if Yi Chen had not helped, they would have been destroyed by the savage spirit village. Therefore, how could they not be grateful to Yi Chen? Yi Chen smiled and nodded at the people. He then walked to the old elder and said, "Old man, I have something to tell you." The old elder nodded respectfully and invited Yi Chen into the house alone. He only looked at Yi Chen after closing the door. Yi Chen went straight to the point. "I'm leaving." The old elder was not surprised at all. "I knew that you're not an ordinary person when I first met you, Lord Yi. I just didn't know what you need my help with." As expected of the chief of the village, Yi Chen looked at him as if he was impressed. "I'd like to ask you for two things. Firstly, I need a map." "A map?" The old elder was slightly stunned. "That's right." Yi Chen nodded and said, "A map? The bigger, the better. It'll be best if it can cover up to 10,000 kilometers. Theoretically, Ying would not have gone far since he was injured to the point where he sucked blood to heal himself. However, he left when the people from the barbarian village were on their way back. He returned to where the ancient beast died and searched within 1,000 kilometers, but he did not find any trace of Ying. The old elder could not help but force a smile as soon as he was done speaking. "You're making things difficult for me, Lord. I do have a map of the barbarian village, but it's only within the Dark Dragon tribe. It can cover up to 250 kilometers at most." Yi Chen was a little disappointed to hear that. The old elder thought about it and said, "Lord, if you need a complete map, you can go to the Dark Dragon tribe. Their map is bigger." "Their map can cover up to 10,000 kilometers?" Yi Chen's eyes lit up. "No." The old elder shook his head while smiling. "The Dark Dragon tribe's map can't cover up to 10,000 kilometers, but the Sky Demon Prefecture can. Lord, you can go to the Sky Demon Prefecture with the Dark Dragon tribe's map." "Sky Demon Prefecture?" Yi Chen frowned. The old elder looked at him. "You might not know this, Lord, but there are 9 prefectures in the wilderness. There's Sky Gold Prefecture, Sky Wood Prefecture, Sky Water Prefecture, Sky Fire Prefecture, Sky Earth Prefecture, Sky Thunder Prefecture, Sky Demon Prefecture, and Sky Wasteland Prefecture, Metal, Wood, Water, Fire, and Earth?" Yi Chen's eyes flashed. "Interesting. They're named after the 5 elements. The Sky Demon Prefecture is where we are. There are thousands of people like the Dark Dragon tribe in the Sky Demon Prefecture." He seemed to have thought of something as he spoke to this point. "But if you're going to the Sky Demon Prefecture, you must be careful. As one of the 9 prefectures, it's said that there's a barbarian saint there. A powerhouse like that can move mountains and seas." "All right, thank you." Yi Chen nodded and smiled. He then said, "I wonder if you've heard of a person called Yi Wushuang." "He's my friend, Yi Wushuang?" The old elder looked confused. He shook his head after thinking for a few seconds. "I really don't know about this old man. If you're looking for him, there might be hope in the Sky Demon Prefecture." End of chapter. Chapter 1281. Yi Wushuang? The old elder's face was filled with confusion. After thinking for a few seconds, he shook his head and said, "I really don't know about this old man. If you want to find out where this person is, there might be hope in the Sky Demon County." Yi Chen nodded in slight disappointment. Late at night, in a quiet courtyard, Yi Chen sat cross-legged on the roof and lifted his head to look at the night sky above him. It was like a huge black cloth was covering him. There was no starlight or moonlight at all. The Forbidden Sea. As time passed, a desolate expression appeared on Yi Chen's face. "I wonder how the patriarch and the rest are doing? Also, have Mom and Dad escaped? Meng Meng must miss me a lot." After an unknown period of time, he returned to his room and secretly made up his mind. "I'll think of a way to the Sky Demon County at dawn and find Wushuang as soon as possible to return to the ancient desolate realm." At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Yi Chen's divine consciousness spread out and saw a well-dressed little girl standing at the door. It was Qing Qing. The little girl seemed to be a little nervous and shy at that moment. She hesitated whether she should push the door open and enter, and she would look behind her from time to time. The old elder, Yang Hong, and the rest were there. At that moment they kept signaling the little girl with their eyes, as if they were urging her to push the door open and enter. The little girl coughed and spoke softly. Her voice was slightly trembling. "Brother Yi, are you asleep?" However, there was no sound in the room at all. There was only the sound of breathing, as if he had fallen asleep. The little girl bit her lip and did not push the door open in the end. Instead, she tiptoed back quietly. The old elder and the rest could not help but sigh softly. After everyone left, Yi Chen, who was in the room, shook his head lightly. He took out a spirit stone and began absorbing spiritual energy. He had heard that when a powerhouse passed by a certain place, that place would offer him a virgin at night. It was nothing more than to borrow the seed so that the future generations would have more powerful talent. The old elder and the rest must have had the same thought. The next morning, Qing Qing, who had woken up early, brought the water to Yi Chen's room door. "Brother Yi, it's time to wake up." She knocked a few times, but there was no movement in the room. Eventually, she could not help but put down the basin and push the door open. At this moment it was empty. The little girl chased after him in a daze and met the old barbarian elder, Yang Hong, and the others. "Father, Brother Yi has left." When the old elder and the rest returned to Yi Chen's room, they saw a row of majestic words carved on the table. The most eye-catching words were the indestructible body. This. The old elder stared at the small row of words and trembled. "It's an ultimate divine skill, the ultimate divine skill Sir Yi left for us." Qing Qing and the others were also stunned. Plop! Thump! The old elder ignored his old age and took the lead to kneel down outside the house. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Thank you, Sir Yi, for bestowing this divine skill upon us. The Berserker village will never forget it." 1,000 miles away from the barbarian village, in the Dark Dragon tribe, as the largest tribe within a radius of 1,000 miles, they ruled over hundreds of villages similar to the barbarian village. Their population numbered in the hundreds of thousands. The tribe's great elder, Wu Chongling, had lived for more than 300 years. He had broken the 3 treasures of the human body and refined his qi and blood into one. He was given the title of Barbarian King. The title of Great Elder was an absolute deterrent in the Dark Dragon tribe. He was infamous even in the surrounding tribes. A bunch of useless fools. It's been 5 days and we still can't find that person. It's enough even if we dig 3 feet into the ground. At that moment Wu Chongling, who was dressed in a long black robe, sat alone in his mansion. His expression was grim. There are less than 10 days to the deadline set by the Great Elder. If there's no result by then, the Dark Dragon tribe will be doomed. The veins on his temples bulged. He was furious, and the intense aura he exuded was so oppressive that the people guarding outside were trembling. At that moment, a cold breeze blew and lifted the curtain of the room. A young man in green walked in slowly. I said, "Get lost. Don't come in without my order." Wu Chongling scolded. Wu Chongling berated. Then, he turned around and his words came to an abrupt halt. He said with a sullen expression, "Who are you? Who allowed you to come in?" However, the young man in green acted as if he did not hear him. He walked to Wu Chongling and sat down next to him. Be ******. Wu Chongling's towering anger finally erupted. He fiercely sent out a palm strike that whistled towards the young man's face, emitting a faint killing intent. However, in the next second, he realized that his fist could not move when it was less than an inch away from the young man's face. In an instant, a thick sense of fear appeared on his face. A powerhouse. He was at least an emperor-level powerhouse. Yi Chen looked at him quietly with a calm expression. "If I were you, I'd put away the killing intent in me if I don't want to die. Yes, yes, Wu Chongling broke out in cold sweat. You're right, sir. May I know who you are? Why do you need me? I want a map, Yi Chen said slowly. A map that leads to the Sky Demon County from the Dark Dragon Tribe or even other counties. Do it as soon as possible. Yes, at that moment, countless splendor flashed through Wu Chongling's eyes, but he nodded calmly. Sir, the map is hanging on the wall behind me. Yi Chen looked up and waved his hand. The map landed in his hand. At the sight of this, the astonishment in Wu Chongling's eyes intensified. Telekinesis. Even the barbarian sovereign wouldn't be able to do something like this. At that moment, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Recently, unfamiliar powerhouses have appeared in the wildlands. Now that this person has suddenly appeared in my Dark Dragon tribe, I must report this to the Sky Demon County. Yi Chen turned around and was about to leave when he noticed a painting on the table. The man in the painting was Ying. At the next moment, he suddenly turned around and placed his palm on Wu Chongling's head. On the way to the Sky Demon County, Yi Chen's gaze kept changing. So Ying is wanted by the Sky Demon County. This guy is too daring. He actually sucked the daughter of the Sky Demon County Lord. Through the soul-searching technique on Wu Chongling, he found out that Ying had first arrived in the Sky Demon County. He seemed to have been injured, and it wasn't light. For some reason, he sucked the daughter of the Sky Demon County Lord. As a result, the Sky Demon County Lord was furious and sent countless experts to kill Ying. The former had more than 10 barbarian saints under his command. Barbarian saints? Thinking to this point, Yi Chen could not help but narrow his eyes. I wonder how he compares to the ancient barbarian world's martial saint. And Wu Shuang. He frowned. Perhaps Wu Chongling's strength is too low and he hasn't come into contact with this level of information. It seems like I can only break through from the Sky Demon County Lord. In Wu Chongling's memory, the Sky Demon County Lord was very powerful. His body was so monstrous that he could transform into a giant and break mountains and rivers. However, to Yi Chen, so what? Even if he didn't use his true origin energy, he had never been afraid of anyone in terms of the strength of his body. Between the mountains, there were powerful beasts running amok in the forest. After Yi Chen sped for 2,000 kilometers, he saw that the Sky Demon County was right in front of him. However, he stopped in his tracks and lowered his head to look at the dense forest below. There was an intense battle aura coming from that place, and it was even accompanied by a trace of ferocious corpse energy. It's Ying. Yi Chen's eyes focused and he suddenly descended. In the towering forest that passed through the river, killing intent filled the air. Birds flew away and flocks of birds scattered. A low, angry roar rang out. You think you can kill me with just a few pieces of trash? P.S. 2 chapters today, 5 chapters tomorrow. I've done what I said before. End of this chapter. Chapter 1282. You want to kill me with just a few pieces of trash? Hearing that voice, Yi Chen calmly landed on a towering ancient tree and looked in the direction of the voice. It was an evil-looking man wearing a black dragon robe. The man's body was filled with monstrous corpse energy and his fangs were bared. His eyes were very bright and captivating. The pair of purple-gold bone wings on his back had broken countless ancient trees, and there were shocking scars on them. Victory indeed! At that moment, Yi Chen's pupils shrank slightly. The ground shook violently, the ancient trees swayed, and several disgusting smells came from the forest. At the same time, there was also a terrifying fiendish aura. You killed our master's daughter. You deserve to die. Suddenly, a 30-meter-tall golden-furred bear burst out of the ground. There was a pair of extremely sharp horns on its head. Come back with us and accept master's punishment. Another huge black ape king appeared. The giant ape emitted a dark light and black fog covered the sky like an unparalleled demon king. Soon after, 3 more huge figures attacked. They were a giant golden wolf that was as tall as a small mountain, a tall and mighty old man, and a gray dragon. These 5 figures had terrifying auras that were extremely frightening. They completely sealed off the space within a radius of 1,000 feet. Sky Demon 5 Saints. In the huge primitive forest, there was a great ferocious beast. Countless ferocious beasts in the forest moved thousands of kilometers away in fear of being caught up in it. Everyone knew that the Lord of the Sky Demon Country had 5 peerless generals under him. They were known as the Sky Demon 5 Saints, but no one knew why they had all come. Ing expressionlessly looked at the 5 terrifying figures around him. What? Only a few pieces of trash like you came? Mysterious powerhouse, you won't be able to escape. The tall old man quietly looked at Ing, who was surrounded by them, and said, Master is angry and has sealed off the entire Sky Demon Country. Even if you fail, you won't be able to escape. Why are you talking so much nonsense with him? Just capture him. With an earth-shattering roar, the gray dragon took the lead and charged at Ing, launching a fierce attack. Its huge body almost covered the sky and earth, and it was wrapped in an incomparably heavy aura. It opened its mouth, and a terrifying light shot toward Ing. Roar! Ing let out a long roar, and the fangs on the corner of his mouth grew several times bigger. Endless corpse aura gushed out, and the purple-gold bone wings on his back flapped as he took the initiative to meet the former's attack. Boom! Terrifying vibrations shook everything. Mountain rocks tumbled down, giant trees snapped, and the ground cracked open. Shockwaves swept in all directions. Gotcha! Under Yi Chen's gaze, Ing actually resisted the Grey WRM's fatal attack head-on. Then, she got close and tore the WRM apart with her hands alone. Even so, his chest was still pierced by the flood dragon before it died, and blood gushed out crazily. You dare to kill the Grey Flood Dragon, you will die today. After the tall old man and the others were enraged, they directly joined forces to kill Ing. There was no fluctuation of yuan qi, only an incomparably pure physical collision, very violent and shocking. Bang! Ing Chong was blasted flying and smashed into a small hill. The purplish gold bone wings on his body were forcefully broken off and fell to the ground, causing a ghastly sight of fresh blood. Mysterious expert, you're injured. The tall old man and the rest approached together and shook their heads, otherwise we would definitely not be your match. What a pity! With that, he was about to deliver the final blow. Ing Lin was not afraid. Instead, he suddenly laughed out loud and said, Mad Southern Yi, how long are you going to watch? Don't you want to go back? As soon as he finished speaking, the tall old man and the others stopped in their tracks and looked around cautiously. There's actually a powerhouse watching from the side? Thinking to this point, the tall old man looked around and said in a deep voice, Since you're here, show yourself. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Under everyone's gaze, the leaves on an ancient tree suddenly fell at the same time, along with a skinny young man. Seeing that, a golden-furred bear immediately sneered and spoke in human language. I was wondering who was hiding, so it's a brat. This brat has thin arms and broken legs. I can kill him with a single slap. The giant ape king also sneered. Yi Chen ignored their mockery and walked to Ing slowly. Then, a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. How did you guess that I'm here? Intuition. Ing stood up and looked at him quietly. I know you too well. My intuition tells me that you're watching from the sidelines. Intuition? Yi Chen chuckled softly. Clearly, he did not believe him. Then, he took a closer look at the injuries on his body and said, You're too weak now. A great emperor has fallen to such a state. How sad, how much better can you be than me? Ing was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, you've fought with the Immortal Palace, right? Yi Chen did not answer his question and said, I can save you, but you have to tell me how to leave this place after that. Ing nodded and said, Sure. While the two of them were talking, the tall old man laughed sinisterly. Brat, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to save this person? To them, Yi Chen's weak appearance was far inferior to Ying. Even if he was somewhat powerful, there was nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, there were 4 of them. Brat, go to hell. The giant golden wolf that was like a small mountain howled and pounced at Yi Chen directly. At the same time, it raised its claws that could tear through the air and slapped Yi Chen's head. Its ferocious might was monstrous, and even the air was trembling. The tall old man and the rest could not help but reveal a cruel expression when they saw that. It was as if they could see Yi Chen being smashed into meat paste by the former's claws. However, the next scene caused the smiles on their faces to freeze. Facing such a fierce attack from the giant golden wolf, Yi Chen suddenly lifted his head and looked at him. Divine light suddenly erupted from the depths of his calm eyes. Ah! The giant golden wolf screamed on the spot before its body exploded. It fell from the sky and died instantly. The sudden scene caused the expressions of the tall old man and the rest to change abruptly. They looked at Yi Chen with fear again. One had to know that the Golden Wolf King was a barbarian saint. Not to mention the Sky Demon County, even in the entire Wildlands, he was considered a powerhouse. However, he was killed by Yi Chen's glare? Who exactly are you? The tall old man took a deep breath in and stared at Yi Chen. His eyes flickered non-stop. We are martial saints of the Sky Demon County, Lord Sky Demon's subordinates. Please. You guys are too weak. Boom. Yi Chen slapped his hand and the giant golden palm pressed down. It was as vast as the stars as it surged toward the tall old man. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1283. Under the horrified gazes of the other two, the tall old man's body was like a weathered stone, gradually turning into dust and scattering with the wind. Dead silence, the surroundings were dead silent. The remaining black ape and giant golden bear watched that scene in shock. Their bodies were trembling. Clearly, they were shocked by Yi Chen's terrifying technique. At that moment, a sharp gaze shot over. The 2 of them shuddered immediately and knelt heavily before Yi Chen. They prostrated themselves and said, "Sir, spare us, spare us." He killed 2 barbarian saints in an instant. Under such a person, they could not resist at all. They did not even dare to escape. Yi Chen was just too terrifying. Yi Chen walked over slowly and looked at the 2 demons in a condescending manner. He said calmly, "Answer a question of mine and I might spare your lives." "Sir, please ask." The black ape forcefully suppressed the shock in its heart and stammered, "We'll definitely tell you everything we know. Have you heard of Yi Wushuang?" Yi Chen looked at the 2 demons as if he was examining them. He enunciated word by word, "This person is dressed in white. He's only 17 or 18 years old, and he's good at swordsmanship." The 2 demons were still at a loss when they heard the name Yi Wushuang. However, their expressions changed when they heard the second half of Yi Chen's sentence. They seemed to have thought of something and hesitated to speak. Yi Chen scoffed coldly. The scoff exploded in the 2 demons' minds like thunder. The 2 demons let out a miserable shriek and completely put away the little tricks in their hearts. The giant golden bear cried out involuntarily, "Sir, we've heard about the person you're talking about, but we're not sure if he's the person you're looking for. Where is this person now?" Yi Chen was overjoyed. The giant golden bear said in fear, "This person isn't in our Sky Demon County. We've heard Master mention him. It's said that this person appeared in our wildlands half a month ago and caused the 9 county lords to join forces to deal with him." The 9 county lords? Yi Chen was delighted at first, but then his gaze turned cold. Why did the 9 county lords join forces to deal with him? What happened after that? We don't know the details. The giant black ape trembled with fear and trepidation. Only our masters know about this. Later on, this person seemed to have disappeared. It's said that 3 county lords were killed by his sword. My lord, we're telling the truth. The giant golden bear was afraid that Yi Chen would not believe it, so it cried for help. In the eastern part of the wildlands stood a huge city. This city stretched for thousands of meters, and the entire city wall was like a ferocious beast standing between the mountains, causing people to feel awe from the bottom of their hearts. The three majestic and domineering words, "Sky Demon Country," were written above the city gate. Occasionally, people would enter and leave the city, but they had to go through strict questioning. Inside the Sky Demon Country's city lord's mansion, there was a violent aura. Countless armored people were kneeling at the door with their heads lowered and their bodies trembling. Trash, a bunch of trash. The blood food this time is too stinky. What are you all doing? Following that, an extremely furious voice rang out from within the room. Immediately, all the guards felt an incomparable piercing pain in their eardrums, and some even fainted. Bang! Suddenly, a figure flew out from the room. It was a woman with a pale face, and no aura came from her body. Her eyes were wide open, as if she had experienced some kind of fear before her death. "Give me another one!" Along with the woman's corpse was the voice from before. Someone immediately responded and turned around to leave. Inside the room, a burly man with a tiger's back and a bear's waist was pacing back and forth. Every step he took gave off a terrifying aura. The burly man shouted, "The Golden Wolf King and the others have been gone for so long. Why haven't they returned yet?" If the old elder of the barbarian village was here, he would be shocked to find that the burly man before him was the Lord of the Sky Demon Country, someone who controlled the lives and deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. "My lord!" A powerful person walked in, knelt on the ground, and respectfully said, "The five lords sent a message saying that they found that person's whereabouts. I think they should be back soon." When the Lord of the Sky Demon Country heard this, his eyes lit up. Logically speaking, it should be easy for the Golden Wolf King and the others to deal with an injured person, but why do I suddenly feel like there's a thorn in my back? At this moment, an anxious voice came from outside. "My lord, the giant ape king and the others have returned." In an instant, two burly figures entered the house. They were the giant black ape and the giant golden bear. "Giant ape, why are only the two of you back?" The Lord of the Sky Demon Country looked at the two demons kneeling before him with a sharp gaze. "Where is that person?" "My lord, there is a tribe rebellion in the west. The Golden Wolf King and the others went to suppress it." The giant black ape's eyes changed a few times, and then he picked up a wooden box wrapped in black cloth. "As for that person, he has already been killed by us. His head is inside the box." With that, he carefully handed over the wooden box. The Lord of the Sky Demon Country's eyes lit up and he took it. He took off the black cloth as if he was going to open it to take a look. At this moment, the giant black ape and the giant golden bear looked at each other and shouted, "Attack!" Boom! In an instant, the two demons suddenly charged toward the Lord of the Sky Demon Country with terrifying attacks. Just at this moment, the seemingly defenseless Lord of the Sky Demon Country let out a cold snort. 8 ferocious tentacles suddenly appeared behind him, as if he had been possessed by an 8-armed demon. Plop! Plop! The giant black ape and the giant black ape were knocked back and coughed out blood. Their expressions were extremely weak. The entire process was extremely fast. It happened in the blink of an eye. "I knew the two of you were up to no good." The Lord of the Sky Demon Country quietly looked at the two demons and his eyes became cold. "I just didn't expect the two of you to dare to offend me." As the Lord of the Sky Demon Country, he controlled one of the 9 countries of the wild, desolate region and controlled the lives and deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe him as a ruthless person. The giant black ape and the giant black ape had served him for hundreds of years and had always been loyal. Now that they had suddenly betrayed him, how could he not be suspicious? Most importantly, for some unknown reason, a trace of a bad premonition suddenly arose in his heart. With that, he took a step forward and walked toward the two demons. "I'm very curious. Where did this dog egg come from to dare to betray me?" Of course it's because of me. At this moment, an indifferent voice came from outside. Then a skinny young man walked in with his hands behind his back. He walked very slowly and his white hair fluttered behind his shoulders. He seemed to ignore everything as if he was looking down on everything. Chapter 1284. Master, he's the Lord of the Sky Demon County, Wei Yundi. The two demons, who were initially in despair, were overjoyed when they saw Yi Chen. It was as if they had seen their savior. Before they came, they were forced to acknowledge Yi Chen as their master in order to survive. Then, they followed Yi Chen's order to return to the Sky Demon County to capture Wei Yundi. However, they did not expect the latter to see through them. It's okay if you don't know me. Yi Chen entered with his hands behind his back. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes when he looked at Wei Yundi, but there's someone you must know. With that, she nodded slightly and said, "Ing, you can come out now." As soon as he said that, a black shadow appeared in the spacious hall like a ghost. Then, a sinister face was revealed. "It's you." Seeing who it was, Wei Yundi's gloomy expression immediately changed. "You still dare to appear in front of me?" Ing Jingjing had been sent to this barren land by the Immortal Palace and was severely injured. She accidentally saw Wei Yundi's daughter and forcefully sucked her blood. Unexpectedly, Wei Yundi, who had rushed over, witnessed it. Naturally, an intense battle broke out between the two of them. In the end, Ing Jingjing, who was already injured, escaped. Ing Jingjing looked at Wei Yundi and a hint of mockery appeared at the corner of her lips. "Princess Fu, I bet you didn't expect us to meet again." Wei Yundi's expression changed slightly. He then looked at Yi Chen all of a sudden. "Sir, this person killed my beloved daughter. The two of us are mortal enemies. Are you sure you want to stand up for him?" Although he did not know Yi Chen's methods and abilities, he could tell that there was something fishy about the two demons' betrayal. "I didn't want to interfere in your matter." Yi Chen placed his hands behind his back, his expression calm. "However, you joined forces with someone to hurt my brother. That's my business." "Sir." Wei Yundi frowned and said, "We've never met before. We don't know each other. When did I hurt your brother?" "This person's name is Yi Wushuang," Yi Chen spoke slowly. Before he could finish, he saw Wei Yundi's expression change. "You're from the outside world too?" "Since you know my identity," Yi Chen said, "I'll give you a chance. As long as you tell me where my brother is, I'll spare your life." "Shameless boasting." Wei Yundi narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Do you really think that you have the strength to fight me just by controlling these two pieces of trash?" Boom! His body shook violently, and 8 ferocious tentacles instantly appeared behind him. Each of them was covered with sharp barbs, and there was a strong cold air gushing out from them. "Since you've walked right into my trap, don't even think about leaving." Wei Yundi grinned ferociously and leaped all of a sudden. His 8 ferocious tentacles charged at Yi Chen like a roaring 8-armed demon. "Master, be careful!" The giant black ape and the giant golden bear screamed in unison. Their hearts were in their throat. If Yi Chen was no match for the giant black ape, one could imagine what would happen to them. "So it's an 8-winged centipede," Yi Chen came to a realization. He then used his finger as a saber and a golden divine glow exploded between his fingers. He turned into a stream of light and charged at Wei Yundi. At that moment, goosebumps rose all over Wei Yundi's body. 2 ferocious tentacles came to block Yi Chen's attack, as if they were trying to neutralize it. However, facing the golden divine glow, Wei Yundi was horrified to find that 2 of his tentacles had been cut off directly. The pain made him scream. The remaining 6 ferocious tentacles expanded and charged at Yi Chen. They were like 6 terrifying divine chains of order that pierced through the air. "You're so stubborn." Yi Chen scoffed and waved his hand. A branch flew over from outside the house. He held the branch in his hand and gently swept at the 6 ferocious tentacles. All 6 of them were broken. Wei Yundi shrieked as blood spurted out of his body. He was thrown out hard. His eyes were filled with intense horror when he looked at Yi Chen again. The 8 tentacles were what he was most confident about. They had existed since he was born, and any one of them could break a mountain range. However, they were so weak in Yi Chen's hands. How could he not be terrified by this? The giant black ape and the giant golden bear, who had retreated far away, were already stunned. Clearly, they did not expect the Sky Demon County Lord, who was supreme in their eyes, to be unable to gain any advantage over Yi Chen at all. The giant black ape and the giant golden bear could not help but look at each other as they thought to this point. They could see the deep fear in each other's eyes. Fortunately, we didn't resist earlier. Wei Yundi endured the pain in his body and looked at Yi Chen in fear. Sir, do you really want to be my enemy? Tell me where my brother is, and I'll leave your corpse in one piece. Yi Chen took a step forward, intimidating him greatly. Roar! Wei Yundi suddenly roared. He opened his mouth and spat. A shocking beam of light tore through the air amidst the surging energy and charged at Yi Chen. It was a green pearl that was merely the size of a pigeon's egg. However, it exuded an ancient and terrifying aura as if it contained an ancient ferocious beast. The moment they saw the green pearl, extreme shock surged in the eyes of the giant black ape and the giant golden bear. They seemed to have recalled something. Master, be careful. That's the heavenly demon pearl. The giant black ape cried out in shock. The heavenly demon pearl is a divine item of the wildlands. It's said to be able to suppress everything. Yi Chen's expression was calm. He merely extended his hand gently as if he wanted to grab the pearl. However, as soon as he held the pearl in his hand, he felt a violent force spread from his palm to his entire body, wreaking havoc in his body. Interesting. Yi Chen grunted and held the green pearl forcefully. He then cut off the mental connection between Wei Yundi and him. Blurred. Wei Yundi spat a mouthful of blood and his face turned extremely pale. Impossible. How could you withstand a blow from the heavenly demon pearl? It was his greatest reliance. It could be said that the reason why he could become the Sky Demon County Lord was because of the heavenly demon pearl. Over the years, the heavenly demon pearl had resolved countless crises for him. However, Yi Chen had taken it away from him. At the next moment, Yi Chen approached him from afar and slapped his palm on the top of his head. He activated the soul-searching tactic to read his memory forcefully. Nobody knew how long had passed when Yi Chen retracted his palm. He looked at Wei Yundi, who was staring blankly, and said to Ing, who was next to him, "I'll leave him to you." Ing moved and teleported to Wei Yundi's side instantly. 2 fangs suddenly appeared and pierced the latter's neck mercilessly. When the giant black ape and the giant black ape saw that, their hearts trembled. They were even more determined to betray Yi Chen. Yi Chen turned a blind eye to that. Instead, he lifted his head to look at the 2 of them. Both of you, get ready immediately. Follow me to Tianhuang County. If you like Evil Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Dad in the city.